Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law Explaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, the latest law firm in Central Minnesota. How you doing, guys? Sorry about that. Not going to dwell on it too much. I was hoping to be live at 11. It just didn't work out. But tonight we have some potpourri style news from the law. That sounds really boring. Look, we got a bunch of different stories from a bunch of different categories that I really like to cover. We've got Saint Benitez, the patron saint of firearms defense in the Second Amendment in the Ninth Circuit, being disciplined over an action completely unrelated to the fact that he keeps actually striking down gun regulations in California. It's definitely not because of that, but we're going to talk about that and talk about the ability to leverage things like sanctions and discipline against, pretty much anybody. We've talked about it in the scope of Trump's election lawyers. We've talked about it in the scope of people who defend people like Alex Jones, like Norm Pattis. We've talked about it in those contexts. But lawyers are supposed to be insulated from that. And in the same way, judges are too. We're supposed to be able to act in accordance with our ethical obligations. A lawyer's ethical obligation is to zealously represent your client. Zealously, not half-heartedly, not half-assedly. It means to represent their interests in all categories at all times. That's what they do. Sometimes that they get fined or sanctioned or they fall on their sword or whatever. Sometimes it means that they, negotiate a plea agreement. They think that it's the best move for the client. They go ahead and represent the client in the best way for them. That's the idea. Judges have a little bit of a different ethical obligation. It is to uphold the law. It is to maintain order. It is to maintain impartiality. It is to run a courtroom that respects and honors the constitutional rights of everybody involved, from the judge to the staff, to the plaintiff, to the defendant, to the state, to the accused, to everyone involved. But what if the political motivations of the disciplinarians, what if those political motivations become a factor when they disagree with the decisions or actions of someone in that place? The disciplinarians have this unique opportunity to curtail behavior, to send the night letter, as Ethan Van Sciver might say, to fire a shot across the proverbial bow, to make people comply. That's just the levers of power or whatever. There's that book, the Whatever Rules of Power. Isn't it a Linsky book? But I mean, that's what it is. Norm Pattis defended Alex Jones. He got his license suspended for 6 months, his law license for 6 months. How dare you defend the indefensible smoking man of Austin? How dare you do that? Mark Randazza, my lawyer, has he defended for a while, I think, the guy who ran the Daily Stormer. These are unpalatable people, but they deserve representation. They have rights to it. Lawyers are supposed to be insulated from doing those things. January 6th lawyers, J6 defendant lawyers, you think they're not sweating in their ball sacks over the fact that, man, are they going to be under higher scrutiny? They defended treasonous traitors in the highest 9/11 attack since 9/11 twice. Everyone should be worried. What about the 2024 election lawyers for Trump? Better win. If we win, it'll be fine. Great lawyers, wonderful lawyers. If we don't win, they'll probably all go to hell immediately. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Thank you, Zoneseek. And whoever else said that, Tom Colby. What was Alinsky's book? Rules for Radicals. That's what that is. My bad. My bad for mixing those up. But in all of this, now we have judges making unpalatable decisions for a certain category of judicial philosophers, right? The ones who think that the Second Amendment means that, yeah, of course we can restrict guns. It says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, but what about all of these infringements? Those are fine. And then some guy saying, yeah, actually, that's not what the Constitution says. And now that Bruin is out, the same guy saying, actually, the Constitution, as Clarence Thomas has told us, is even stronger than we were applying it. So now he's applying it betterly. He gets disciplined as a judge in another case, and he may deserve it. We're going to take a look at that. We've got Texas fighting Biden, fighting porn, mostly Pornhub. The ALO, I think it's ALO, who owns Pornhub and Brazzers and other companies, major ones. Texas scored a massive victory in upholding their law requiring age verification from adult content websites. The Fifth Circuit upheld that victory. There was much moaning and screaming from the peanut gallery, including me. I don't think under the existing jurisprudence it's the right decision. But that doesn't mean the existing jurisprudence remains, right? It does change. And I've talked about how porn in the modern era might need to be reclassified as obscenity based on the definition. Because the key definition of obscenity is that it has not sufficient artistic value to overbalance the prurient interest. Now, the bar has always been understood to be very low levels of artistic value versus the amount of sex and dirty sex that they have in the movie, right? Or the scene or the drawing or the story or the picture book or the pop-up book in the kids section or whatever. It's like, here's how you were made, doggy style. Like, they shouldn't have that book, but they do, right? Like, that's out there. The pop-up book about sex. I don't think that, if it doesn't exist, I'm patenting it now. Just so it'll never be made. But anyway, all of these things can descend into obscenity if there's not sufficient artistic value to overweigh what's called the prurient interest. The interest in sexual, attraction, desire, arousal. It used to be back in the 60s when that decision was rendered that you had movies that happened to have pornographic elements to them. Nowadays, the pornography is the main element of the scenes. It's not even movies, really. These scenes, and many of them have no narrative value. All of the artistic literary value is put into the title and maybe description of the scene. It's like, oh, step bro, I'm stuck in the, easy bake oven or whatever. And then like 2 34-year-olds have sex, and we're supposed to imagine that there's step siblings who stayed home from school that day because they've been held back for a decade and a half. But that's the plot. Like, that's the entire story. Is like, oh, I'm stuck under a table. And then like the stepbro of a different race comes up and just rails them into oblivion. And you're like, well, I guess the story was good. I learned a lot about the human condition. And so we go, okay, well, we've gone now from plot-based movies with pornographic elements and scenes to just literally pornographic scenes with a plot delivered by a fucking title of the video. Does that no longer, is that not satisfactory for the definition of obscenity? I don't know. I've always defended pornography as currently protected by American jurisprudence and free speech principles because it has been. Not that I necessarily think that it should be forever. I'm kind of like a free speech guy, so I defer to the idea of allowing more than blocking, but we do have, again, under existing Supreme Court jurisprudence, this idea that something can be too far and not enough literary value. Just literary value has always been so small. Like, it can be written in a Dark Souls little chalk line. It's been that little. And so I've always held the position that, as long as that's the standard, then you got to say it's free speech pretty much every time until it gets into like children or, actual duress or rape or whatever, like actual, not the fantasy, but the actual stuff. Obviously, those things are not protected speech, but just generally professionally produced pornography has sufficient artistic value in whatever minimal storyline that they've given. Or so that's been the understanding. But maybe it isn't anymore. And the reason I say that is because Ken Paxton mentioned that Texas has a right to protect its children from pornography and obscenity. And it triggered my my noodle, not that one, but the one up top, the mastacholi or whatever, not the linguine. And it made me think about it. And I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I've talked about the possibility of porn falling under the obscenity category, like in the right conditions, but maybe the obscenity category is broader than we want to admit. Like maybe it should. What did it mean at the time? At the time they decided it, I think they watched like Deep Throat or Debbie Does Dallas, or probably both of them, rewound them and watched them again. The justices actually went back and watched pornography during their deliberations, which is pretty funny when you think about that. And they brought their clerks back there because I guess some of them probably needed a hand with taking notes. But they did that, and they decided that those weren't sufficiently obscene. They had a sufficient literary value, but they said, we don't really know how to define it, but we will know obscenity when we see it. So please show us everything so we can find the obscenity. That's what they're trying to do. But maybe, all those justices, I believe, are dead. Thank God. But maybe now we look at it and we go, would they have found this to be obscene? I mean, when you think about the degenerate pornography that's out there, some of it's pretty fucking bad, right? You think about it, which is hilarious, but you think about it and you go, that's not quite the same, right? As like that 70s bush trimming pornography that was out there, where the guy's like, hey, I see your hedges need some maintenance. And just goes for it or whatever. She's still got like curly hair, one cigarette in her mouth, two in her hands. It's on a waterbed. It's jiggling more than Chris Christie at a fucking buffet. So we're going to take a look at that. That's where Texas is fighting pornography, but they have another fight going on. And that's against the ATF. Well, I said Biden in the title because it's longer than ATF, but it's against the ATF over these new gun regulations that are coming out of the Biden administration, trying to impose background checks on private sales. And there's another article about these new credit requirements on the sale of guns, where if you purchase a gun with a credit card, there are codes attached to the purchase that allow companies to recognize the fact that it's a gun purchase. And that's something that really needs to be discussed, because anytime there's a mandatory tag on commerce, the commerce is then tracked to the individual. Well, anything that's maintained by a bank, like credit card records for business purposes, legitimate business purposes, like, again, like keeping transactions, understanding where money is spent. Banks have features like showing you your spending habits and stuff like that, helping you develop budgets. They have to also keep track of where you're spending money, because they have to keep a ledger of the transactions to show you where your money went when you're like, oh my God, where did it all go? They're like, well, let me show you your gambling debt. Like, oh, I didn't realize I was paying for online poker or whatever. I actually saw that at Wells Fargo when I worked there. There's an attorney who came in. He's like, I'm overdrawn a lot. He had all these overdraft fees, like 70. And I looked and they were all from an online poker site. And I was like, isn't this illegal? He worked for the government. But anyway, we're going to skip that. But they keep track of this. So they have legitimate business purpose in keeping these transactions and keeping records of them, which means that the government can access them just by asking the bank. They can turn them over or not. They don't need a search warrant to do so. You have no privacy interest in that stuff. So now your transaction ledger at the bank or on your credit card statement includes a credit tag that shows that it was a gun purchase. And I think it even gets specifically into at least categories of guns, but we'll check out that story as well. Very weird. What to me looks like infringements on the Second Amendment. And, obviously anyone who believes in anything about America kind of looks at that with the side-eye sus look. Then we've got Trump and his hush money trial going on right now. He also has the stolen documents case, and he has asked for dismissal due to selective prosecution in the stolen documents case, which is a really difficult motion to win. So we'll talk about what's going on there and what the arguments are. But really, for me, as a conceptual point, I don't think a president should be able to commit stolen documents crimes. So those are the main topics. There's some other stuff that's out there. We'll kind of mosey through those. But the main theme I want to get to today, and this is actually tying all these points together, is something I've been thinking about a little bit recently, which is how, like, we obviously shape American law as we go. The Supreme Court shapes and creates law. They shape and end law. They create the common law system. I mean, as rulings occur, as these things are decided, and especially as they're determined by the Supreme Court, it's an almost final measure on what the common law is, what American jurisprudence is. And I've been thinking about it. The judicial philosophies between the left and the right on any given issue are so wildly divergent. How do you reconcile these two things? How does an American legal system get crafted when the two sides are miles fucking apart? Like, think about the abortion issue. What is the compromise? What's the middle position between death and life? Ayn Rand always said you cannot compromise with poison. There isn't a compromise with death. There's either death or not death. There's not like half death. I mean, there is half death. It's the public school system, but you know what she means. Like, you cannot compromise with a bullet going through your brain. Hold on, good projectile. Please only kill me a little bit. Oh, wait, that Gabby Gifford's chick got that, I think. So I want to know, I want to know, but we'll never answer that question on this particular night on this show. But I want to explore just the philosophical question of how do we reconcile this thing? Our system of law is generally an adversarial system. It's the two extremes of a position. Think of a civil lawsuit, right? You stepped on my cat and crushed it to death. I didn't step on your cat. It walked under my foot while I was stepping on someone else's cat or whatever. There's these two different sides to the story. And typically what we do is have a fact finder or a jury of fact finders suss out the proper factual record and then place it under the law. But that is placing the factual record under the law. That's not what the law is. What the law is determined by Congress and then codified ultimately by the Supreme Court saying this is what the law is. Thanks, Marbury versus Madison. The law is what it is until it isn't, though. Like, it's legal to shoot someone in self-defense until that self-defense becomes politically unacceptable to the point where you go to prison for it. The right to protest is there, and protests are protected until they're not, right? Until you have tiki torches and shitty haircuts and Heather Heyer dying of being fat and hit by not by a car, but by a heart attack after a car came close or something. But that guy claims a gun was pointed at him and there's video of it. So, like, what is the American jurisprudence when we are now influenced so heavily by political philosophy in the one place where political philosophy is supposed to exist the least? And I don't know how we reconcile that. An adversarial system relies on finding the factual record and applying the law to the facts. But defining the law is something that was not supposed to be political. I mean, passing the laws is political, but defining it, what does it mean? What do these terms mean? How do we understand this? Was supposed to be, at the time the law is codified in the U.S. Code, it's supposed to be understood, or in the state the state statutes. Once it's done, it's supposed to be understood by a reasonable person. And the reasonable person is just supposed to be the average guy or chick, I guess, whatever that is. It's supposed to be the average, the everyman, the anybody. But if you read the laws right now, can you understand them? Do you know? Do you know what they mean actually? Or is there enough ambiguity? Is there enough vagueness to leave you with questions about whether you're following it or not? I think there's plenty. I think there's enough leeway for the government to charge just about anybody with just about anything at any time. I think that's part of control. But let's ignore the government's interest in this and just figure out how the left versus the right in 2024 are supposed to rectify this difference. I've seen people talk about a country split, and I don't know how that would work. I know I'd in Minnesota, so I'd be on a shitty side of whatever. It doesn't matter. Whichever way it goes, it'll still be bad. But how do we avoid that split? How do we bring these philosophies together? The mechanism for doing so is not compatible with ideas. It's only compatible with facts. So that's kind of the undergirding theme of these topics and stories that I picked tonight. It's something I'm going to be thinking about and maybe expounding upon as we talk in the future. If there is a future, Marty, we got to go back. But we have to figure out like how we do this. Because right now, I don't see how the two sides reconcile. I don't see a path to redemption. I don't see a way in which we say equality is real. Everyone has this equal opportunity, and that should be protected. And then the other side going, yeah, except whites had it too good for too long, pushed down, or other people should be elevated. Those two positions cannot be reconciled. One of equality and one of a hand up to recognize inequality is those two things are so wildly different. Just because they use similar syllables in certain places doesn't make them right. Again, the reconciliation between abortion and non-abortion, the reconciliation between self-defense and you shouldn't have a gun because you might use it wrong. How do we reconcile these positions? I don't know. But that's kind of part of the theme of all the show. So bear with me on that. Shut Up Bike and Cook says, Nick, you darling man, please cover a trial soon. I can't watch them unless news. You make them funny along with the wild chat. Blessings. Can you read this slow, sir? I think I did. I wasn't at Ben Shapiro speed. Yes, I would like to cover a trial soon. I'm hoping to get to a place where I'm home. I was gone all day today. I have been home for sporadically for merely a couple hours, from 7:30 in the morning until 10:35. I think I got home. I was and between that, I was home for maybe 3 total hours. So kind of a messy day. Would love to jump into the Karen Reed trial. I saw other people covering it. It looks like they're covering it just fine or whatever. But I know that there's a lot of potential with that trial. I know a lot of people are interested with it. It's got true crime. It's got, intrigue about framing and setups and deception and cover-ups and the good old boys club of local police sticking together to protect your boy. And of course, the classic, the tried and true, and the always funny blaming everything on a woman. Karen Reed case sounds great. Would love to cover that. Maybe I will be able to jump in. I think they're on day 4 right now, or 3 or 4. I'm not sure how long it's planned to go. But it sounds like a wild case. It's straight out of a shitty NYPD Blue movie or whatever show. Zephiel says they're not two sides. What do you mean they're not two sides? Shut Up Bike and Cook says, Nicholas, can you give your preliminary synopsis of the Karen Reed trial? I haven't been watching it. Again, like I'm not home to cover it. I'm not watching it. I don't have the bandwidth right now. I'm not even present in my house, and I'm not in a place where I can sit and watch a trial either. If I was sitting like in a office or something where I could just kick my feet up and watch a trial and be like, I'm pretending to work, I would do that in a heartbeat. But my preliminary synopsis is Turtle Boy came on here and made a pretty good case that chick had nothing to do with the murder. Does that mean he's right? No. I mean, Aiden seems like a cool dude, but I have no reason to specifically trust his story. I'm guessing there's elements that he leaves out because they're inconvenient, not on purpose, not maliciously, but I'm guessing there's embellishments that he might make because that's our natural storytelling. Half Iris says 6 weeks, but only part-time, half days and no days. What is with these damn 6-week trials? Look, you're going to pin it all on a woman. Give her like a day and a half. Like, we're not even going to put you in prison. You're just going to get house arrest or whatever because we need you to do the dishes. Shut Up, I Can Cook says, you were burqa or lol. I don't know what that means, but I always wear burqa. Eric Sean says, I really appreciate your insightful legal opinion on current events. I'm probably alone on this, but I think your show would benefit if you toned it down on the distractions and maintained focus on the legal analysis. You know what? You're probably right. But I have an inability to do so. I don't know, man. I talk about what comes on my mind. I always have, and probably always will. I've tried to get a little more focused and intentional on show topics and sticking with them. But lately, if I find something like interesting or funny, I pursue it because I like having fun and telling jokes. And if I'm into the topic, I'm talking about it in a more interested manner. So when I find those threads and I pull on them, I go with them. Do I do it too often and for too long? I've never been accused of that in my life, but yes, I do. So your analysis is probably correct. But that being said, there's you do. I don't know. It's kind of weird how you do like a show. At least me. Like I do a live show, I get on, I start talking about a topic, and I just talk through it. I don't have a script. I don't have much of a plan other than I'm going to talk about this and this and this. Here's my initial thoughts as I'm going through. Do my thoughts change? Do I talk through those changes? Usually I do. Like, oh, this is not what I understood it to be, or this is new, or this challenges my opinion in some way. And then I just apply the things that I know, learn, and believe as I go. That's how I really just process information in general. So for me, that's how I do a show. I can't do like scripted shows. One, because I wouldn't follow the script. I'd change my mind in the middle of reading it. Two, I don't like the way scripted shows sound. And three, I'm just not good at that style of anything. I tend to just move in the moment because again, my brain and my mouth work in conjunction to process information a particular way. I talk through it. Like I usually learning as I go, asking questions, answering those questions, coming up with revelations, sharing them vocally, because that's just how I work. It's annoying to my dentist. DeWatt says he gifted 5 Ricado memberships. Thank you so much. Ellie Fan says, are you a real lawyer? I mean, what even is a real lawyer when you get down to it? I'm a licensed attorney. I've passed the bar. I'm admitted to practice the law in good standing in the state of Minnesota. And that's where it ends. And that's good. Lethal Old Fart says, drop by Joe's ASMR stream tonight. Learned 2 things. 1, he's getting big numbers for those streams. And 2, I was the only non-Asian male there, so I got the hell out of Dodge. Wait, what Joe ASMR stream? What the fuck is that? What ASMR stream is Joe doing? I really wanted to talk to Joe as soon as possible. I want to talk to him about his Trump motion before he actually gets into court with it, and kind of get people like who haven't seen it maybe to experience that in a loving way and support him however I can. I don't know what I can do, but happy to help out. But he's very busy right now, so trying to schedule a show with him. I'll reach out to him again. But since he's Jewish, I can't have him on tomorrow. So I have to probably wait till Monday at the earliest or whatever. Why is he doing an ASMR stream? Let's see. What the hell? A real boring one. There are people watching him type. What's he typing? I don't know. Whatever. He's doing it 5-6. He's doing what 5-6? Anyway, it doesn't. Oh, he's typing up his motion on live stream. That's cool. That's funny. SD Smasher, are you saying you have the tism? Just a touch of it, but yes. Also no, but yes. Let's see. Ellie Fan says Grifty is a blocking mod. What a bish. Wait, Grifty, are you blocking people? Or did you just block Ellie? I mean, if you blocked her personally, that's funny. If you banned her, that'd be bad. But wait, Andrea Hanfa says he mentioned on his stream tonight he wants to talk with you. Oh God, that sounds like my dad. Ellie says, do you ever pass a bar? All the time. I don't go to bars very often. I like to, especially if it's like got a good vibe or like good people that are there, or karaoke or, you know, gay people. Grifty says, Joe said he wants to come on next week. Well, next week sounds like a lucky girl. He's working on his reply brief for his case. Oh, that sounds great. I'll hit him up. Shut Bike Cook says, please no women mods also. I came to you one reason because mods were not allowed to ban people. Nick, please tell no women mods. Okay, I'll tell no women mods. I don't know what you want me to tell them. Look, on YouTube especially, I implemented a 10-second delay between chats because my mods were banning people who were spamming when I didn't think they were. And so to eliminate the ambiguity, I just said, if you're typing the same message every 10 seconds, I don't give a fuck. Like, that's fine. That's not spamming. I don't want people banned for what they say, or anything like that. If they, you know, release private information about someone, I guess YouTube doesn't like that. So would try to knock that shit out. But generally speaking, I just say, I don't care what people say in the chat. It's the chat. Say what you want. It's the old school internet in that way. But, you know, mods exist to take care of very particular instances of things. And they used to do more. And I told them they're getting pay cuts from their no salary. And then please stop banning anybody at all, especially for things like spam. We can rectify that. Patroller says, first they came for our guns, then they came for our baldos. Long time no rant. Just wanted to say hello, brother. Hey, man, how's it going? They'll never take my baldo except for my cold, dead sack. Bitch Wong Fu says, I like when you rant. Oh, thank you. Me too. Billdozer74 says, rant more, fag. Well, I'm not going to manufacture a rant, though. What am I, like Foxconn? No, I'll rant when it's appropriate to rant, which might be today. We'll see. Okay. Here we go. Let's get into this first fucking thing. St. Benitez. This is St. Benitez is a great. Go fuck away. What? He's a very interesting judge. I actually don't want to say that he's a great judge. I don't know. I like his rulings on the Second Amendment. He seems to actually apply Bruin fairly consistently. When you apply Bruin consistently, you get a consistent result, which is, yeah, we're gonna have that Second Amendment thing. That's gonna matter. Because Bruin says, hey, if it didn't exist in 1865, well, technically 1868 or 1791, if there wasn't an analogous law that we can use as a model in the historical tradition in the United States, then we're not going to ban guns. Stop trying to ban guns. So I like him. Gun advocates like him. He's the one judge representing in the in the Ninth Circuit, which is, of course, California, Washington State, Hawaii, Oregon, I guess, maybe somewhere else, but who cares? You know, it's the left coast. It is the most chromosome, the most estrogen, I don't know how to describe it. It's obviously the most liberal circuit. It's got a reputation for it. And then there's this guy, and he's funny, and he just keeps striking shit down that they try to pass. Makes me very happy. Almanac says, I absolutely agree with erection. Your legal takes is why I'm here. You're funny AF, but I get frustrated when you don't finish your legal analysis. Well, I'll try and finish. I would hate it if I didn't. So I'll try and do that better. Let's see. Trip, the left-handed Polak, says, your brother in reality, just having a discussion, open to honest pushback and modification if persuaded to keeping it real. Wait, what? Trip, the left-handed Polak, your brother in reality. I mean, I have brothers-in-law, but I don't have biological brothers. So just having a discussion, open to honest pushback and modification and persuaded to keeping it real. What are you talking about? JC says, you looking to have Joe on now? Yeah, absolutely. Like if he wants to come on tonight, I'll have him on. I'll throw him the link. Does he want to be on? I love talking to Joe. I know he's a busy dude though. Grifty says, Ellie is starting shit because I heard her feelings in Joe's chat. Oh, well, I encourage that. Pay no attention to the Karen. Also, taking experimental meds to save your job is weak and greedy. Wait, what? What oh, the COVID vaccine or whatever? Okay. Ellie Fan says, do you still work? Asking for a friend. I mean, do I still work? It depends on your definition of work. Do I function? Yes. Am I employed? I mean, this is my main employment, is the self-employment of YouTube and Rumble, I guess. Do I still work as a lawyer? Rarely. I don't want to most of the time, but if I can help someone out, I try to. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Do you perform a certain job? Only with hands. But so yeah, JC, let me know. Like, does Joe want to come on? Let me see if he's texting me or anything. He has not. If Joe wants to come on, he can just go ahead and send me a text and I'll send him the link. Ellie Fan says, Grifty wants everyone dead who took the jab, just as bad as pro-vaxxers. I just want them all dead inside. Yeah, he's mumbling. Text him. I'll send him a message real quick. Joe. There we go. Technically, it's Shabbos. No, isn't Shabbos? Doesn't it start at like 5 p.m. tomorrow? Shut Up I Can Cook says, Nick, darling, I do not go to any of the guys' lawyers. I watch trials with you because they have women banning and silencing people. Women do be banning, though. They do be banning. No, I want people to talk openly about the trials and me. Zachary Keith Hasbrook says, my lawyer missed my traffic court date. What do I do? I mean, I guess you have to go trans. Sorry. That's what you have to do. Let's see. Hold on. There we go. Can my wife make me a sandwich? I don't think so. I think she's going to bed. Let's see, Nick, if you're idiot mod silencing people, I have to leave, sir. I don't think they are. Caesar Day says, oh my God, save Joe. He's OCDing free Joey. Joe is coming. He says, sure, link me. Okay, here we go. This will be fun. We'll get his mind off of his motion. Got my mind on my motion and my motion on my mind. And, or we can talk about whatever. I can always save these topics for tomorrow, but I'll talk about them with Joe too. That'd be fun. I just sent Joe the link, so I'll wait for him to pop in. He's a good dude. He and I've been looking for a time to talk. It's been way too long. After No Nut Nick month, Nick can run, jump, and play all he wants with the gays in June. No Nut Nick month. Wait, is that May? I don't get. God damn it. I didn't know that was going to happen. Let's see. Hold on. Here we go. I'm just waiting for Joe to show up. Maybe I should just talk about this Benitez story. A Benitez story. So here, let's pull that up. By the time I pull this up, Joe will be here. It'll be great. Here we go. San Diego federal. Oh, come on. Who is this? San Diego federal judge disciplined. Goodness gracious. For misconduct for ordering a defendant's teen daughter handcuffed during the hearing. Oh, shit. Let's see. Trip the left-handed poleaxe says, just meant in keeping the conversation real and open. My impression of you. I have my opinion, but opinion to a persuasive argument. I think you mean argument. Like, what's your opinion? I don't even know what your opinion of me is. So, I mean, you have it. Share it if you want. But I'm not sure what it is. Rob Price says, I owe him $100. I do? Seas Today says, from the river to the sea, Joe needs help from Nikki. Oh, my God. So here we go. The Ninth Circuit said U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez had no authority to handcuff the teen girl during his attempt to teach her a lesson about drugs. Now, look at this guy. If this guy can't teach you a lesson about drugs, I don't know who can. It's like, I'm going to handcuff you. You're going to learn about drugs. Little ominous. A San Diego-based U.S. district judge who ordered a U.S. Marshal to handcuff a defendant's 13-year-old daughter during a 2023 hearing has been disciplined for judicial misconduct. The order issued by the Ninth Circuit Judicial Council stems from a 2023 sentencing hearing where good logic, my good friend Joe, has arrived. How you doing, buddy?
Yo, I'm good, but I need to figure out my audio for a second here. How do I silence my audio here?
Person at a funeral. You sound like a mortician. Hello. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm lost in thought. I'm trying to figure out how to mute.
You're lost in thoughts? Are you on Instagram or something? Like, what's going on?
What?
You said you were lost in thoughts.
Yeah.
What are you trying to like how to mute?
I'm trying to figure out how to mute. I'm playing you.
Like you have my show on another window or something?
Yeah. I have your show on another window that I'm sharing with my stream. I muted myself there. But I'm hearing our conversation in the background.
So you're stream sniping me while on stream?
This is where my audience can hear.
But they're like 20 seconds behind. Isn't that weird?
I think I can mute this window for myself. That's don't you think that's
dude? So here's what I would do.
Yeah.
Do you have two monitors or just one?
Two.
I would set the StreamYard window in one of the monitors, full screen it, and then share that monitor. Share the monitor tab or whatever, or the monitor. So you have just that. That could be your, shared to your audience. Would that work? And then you just use our audio.
That's what I'm doing currently, but I'm still hearing the echo in the background.
That I have no idea, man.
There's a way that I can mute it for myself and everyone else can still hear it. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, well, I'll use our audio, but they still hear this audio. There's a way to do that.
Just mute your mic on the other stream, right?
I've already muted my mic on the other stream.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah, otherwise for them it'd be insane. They're saying echo.
I have no idea how to do this then. It's very weird.
All right. I'm gonna have to cut this out here.
You could just kill your stream like a baby born out of wedlock.
Okay, I know what to do. I'm just gonna share our StreamYard instead.
Yeah, that works. Share all my private comments where I just talk about how handsome you are.
Okay.
How do you only have one ear on your headphones? Did you go like buy it from a trucker store?
No, I just.
Oh, is the other one behind you? Oh, it's behind you. Okay.
Yeah, it's like it starts like when you're wearing them for a long time, it starts getting like painful. Not everyone has the fancy schmancy headphones of a Nick.
Dude, that's why I switched to the monitors. I had two things going on. Those headsets start to press in on your head, right?
Right.
And then the other part is for you wear a hat, but for me, I had that band running across the same spot, and it was actually like thinning out my hair just in this like 2-inch strip across my head. I looked like a fucking racing stripe was being built. It was weird, but only if I walk sideways.
I think this is good. I think that it's good for my audience and for yours, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I haven't spoken to you like I don't know since like in 2024. Have we spoken?
Like a couple texts. That's about it. We haven't been hanging out at all. It's terrible.
I know. I'm feeling the withdrawals.
I need my counselor, my friend, my confidant. I also need Joe. Like, I don't know who that other person is.
Right. I got that.
And you're doing this crazy thing. You're trying to throw some Trump rep in there with moving to remove his gag order. It's an amicus, or is it no, it's your own suit, right?
Oh, it's my own lawsuit. I am suing Judge Mershon. Suing him.
Yeah, that guy sucks. I hate him.
In my individual capacity and under Good Logic LLC.
Okay, so let me so cause of action, you have what First Amendment concerns because you're prevented from hearing speech that you would maybe otherwise like to hear. Is that accurate?
Yeah, this is all Robert Barnes' fault. Really? You want to know?
It's Robert Barnes' fault? Like, what did he do? Was he like, hey, Joe, I was back in 1981, I was representing somebody on the radio, and he had this idea. He just wanted to go ahead and sue the government every time they shut someone down because he's like, I could hear those guys. I can hear them. And we won. I mean, it was tough. There was mafia involved. There were bribes. There was lots of crazy stuff. So
that's really pretty good.
A couple of AR-15s, but
that's really pretty good. That's really pretty good. Now you got to do. Someone needs to sue the judge on the freedom of press claim
with a cigar. He's like,
but I would end up in jail. I'd end up in jail if I did it. They'd throw me in prison. But let's talk about that for another 15 minutes with you, Florida man Viva. And then as we're wrapping this segment up, we say, hey, you know what? Good Logic. Joe Neerman. He's a member of the media. It wouldn't even cost him any money. He's an attorney.
I'd go to jail. I've done too much. I represented too many people, but that Good Logic guy, Joe, he's great.
And don't worry, Joe. If they throw you in jail, we'll bail you out. That's what he actually said. They throw you in jail, we'll bail you out.
Viva and Barnes show up, bail you out, and then represent you.
Yeah, that's totally happening. That's totally going to happen.
That'd be great.
Anyhow,
I love Barnes. He's hilarious.
He is amazing. And I'll tell you this much. So I looked into the viability because at first I was like, this is between the state and Trump. Like, I can't just bring a motion to come in there. Like, I didn't even know what vehicle I would use to intercede. And I was
tell me about more motions to come, Joe. In there.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can't just jump into a lawsuit. You'd have to contribute as an amicus, which is weird because especially at the district court level, they don't have any duty to accept an amicus.
An amicus doesn't get relief. Also, they jump in on the request. It doesn't make any sense. So what I basically, and I don't even know if there isn't such a thing as an amicus in a criminal proceeding. I've never engaged in criminal defense work or prosecution. I don't know anything about constitutional law from actually practicing it. Otherwise, than I know what I've heard people talk about. I've read enough Supreme Court cases to blow my eyeballs out. But as far as actually practicing in that area or New York civil rights law, I don't know anything. So I was like, and someone in my chat, unfortunately, came upon the key case, which I saw that and I was like, that probably would work here if I wanted that. And there's a case called New York Times versus Rothwax.
Rothwax?
Yeah, you don't know who the Rothwax is.
I have no idea. Who's Rothwax?
He's a judge. He's a judge who presided over the Joel Steinberg case in the late 1980s. Do you remember the Joel Steinberg case?
Joe, all I know is that
it was big news here in New York.
Do I make this joke? Like, do I do a joke? Can I please, like, do I have permission to make the joke that Rothwax and Steinberg sound like the two targets of the anti-Israel protests going on where everyone's getting arrested? Like, it's funny though, like, right? Rothwax and Steinberg, come on.
Well,
man.
If they get a hold of Steinberg, God bless them, because that son of a bitch would like basically beat the hell out of his own infant child. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, so Steinberg was the judge? Was Rothwax? He's the defendant. So he beats the hell out of
Steinberg was defendant. Rothwax was the judge in the case.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Rothwax was concerned that if people are talking about, or reporters are talking about the case, that will make it impossible for him to get a fair trial. So he issued a gag order on Steinberg's attorney saying you can't talk to the media. Well, the New York Times came along and said, hey, whoa. We have a First Amendment right, freedom of the press. and they brought what's called an Article 78 proceeding. It's a special proceeding that New York's civil procedure. It's a civil suit, and you sue the body or agency or the judge who issued a ruling that harmed you. So the New York Times sued the judge saying your ruling harmed us because we can now not collect information from this primary source, these attorneys who are defending Steinberg, and accordingly, it's wrongfully infringing on our freedom of the press. And you have to sue in the department. This was, I think, the second department. No, it was the first department. It was the first department, and that which is our appellate courts are broken up into 4 departments.
Okay,
and
so that's in Jersey.
This is New York. It's all New York. Everything here is New York. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
New York is a weirdly labeled system of courts, right? Like
yeah, very weirdly. Our basic level is called Supreme Court.
Right, which is like
backwards.
That's like a Taco Bell beef supreme. It's like, well, this is just the entry level.
Yes. Yeah.
Burrito.
Yeah.
The actual better burrito is not called a supreme burrito.
I think the logic behind calling Supreme Court is because we have lower courts at a trial level. Like there's a district court, a civil court, a surrogates court, a small claims court, all these different lower courts. So amongst them, for the trial court level, that's the supreme one. So they call that Supreme Court. Anyhow,
yeah, because New York City has the business court, like they have a ton of specialized courts because it's so densely populated. The amount of cases they have, even in like Minneapolis and St. Paul. Like in St. Paul, you have in Ramsey County, you do have a housing court. All they deal with is landlord-tenant issues, for example. And you'll have like a family court, you'll have a domestic court, and then of course, the federal level, you have immigration courts. So it's not uncommon, but New York just has so damn many of them. But yeah, the general district court.
To make that point. To make the point as to what you're saying, there's a whole building in downtown New York which is just for immigration. Like it's a courthouse
just
like
for
a
rocket ship disguised as a building, and they're like, "Oh yeah, come in here and have your case heard." And they're like,
"Yeah,
okay, we will go inside." Well, some of them are probably Canadian, and then the rocket ship just flies them to Mexico. And the Mexico ship's like the 7 Canadians to Canada in like a box full of cocaine or whatever. It's like it's going there anyway. We'll just put these guys in there.
Well, anyhow, so that's our Supreme Court is our trial court level. I'll try to bring this back to the legal. You do the jokes. I'll keep providing the info.
We've learned it is legal to fly unlawful entrants to other states, probably to fly them back to Mexico. I think that's okay.
You're preaching to the choir. What am I going to tell you? I'm on board with that. It's just not,
real question before we go back to the thing. And this is in the vein. What if, like a reclusive billionaire like Elon Musk, what if he took it upon himself? Well, he's an autistic billionaire like Elon Musk. What if he literally decided, like, because Texas governors and stuff and Florida governors, they're busting and flying unlawful entrants all over the place, right? What if Elon Musk was like, he goes to Home Depot, he picks up all the guys who are standing outside trying to get illegal day jobs or whatever, and he just puts them in a Tesla electric truck and he just drives them literally back to Mexico? Can you, a private citizen, deport an unlawful entrant back to their origin country? And then, I've never even pondered that. Have you thought about that?
It's kind of a cool idea,
right? Like, because you can't do it in conjunction with the state, because then you become a quasi-state actor, you become a government entity for the purposes of the analysis. But a private actor, just like if Jeff Bezos is like, yes, come work at Amazon, we'll pay you in cash, and they all go into a building, and it's a SpaceX rocket, and he just shoots them to Argentina or whatever. Like, fooled you. Like, that's funny. Like, is that
the question
illegal?
is, would they have a private right of action against Elon Musk for doing that? That's really what you're asking there. And I don't, that's an interesting question. I never really thought about. I'm certainly not going to give legal advice on that, because
I will give legal. Jeff Bezos, please try this out. You have good enough lawyers to at least give it a shot.
Yeah, everyone's
I like
suggesting
Musk more than Bezos.
Yeah, everyone's just. Actually, I need to put in my title here. I need to put the link.
Subtitle in.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be anything remotely amusing here, but I should put this in here because I'm supposed to be promoting my Give Send Go to ungag Trump. So
we'll talk about that. This is not planned. No one knows that. I didn't know you were coming on here. It's a surprise to everybody.
People in my chat were saying you were hailing me, and I was busy working. I invented a new type of law show.
Is that where you type emotion while like live?
Yeah, I call it lawyer mukbang.
That's disgusting that you call it that.
It is. That's what it is. It's like you're basically watching the sausage being made. I'm sitting there, like spending, and I had 3,000 people live watching me, just typing. I wasn't interacting with them.
I love that.
I wasn't interacting. Every once in a while, I'd pause and I'd be like, "All right, I don't know if the right word I want to use here." When I was like talking, I was talking about how instead of narrowly tailoring the relief, the Judge Merchant slapped on. And I was like, do I want to use moo here? Do I want to use, like, I was sitting here, I was like, I don't want it to be too comical, but I want to make it very clear that this is an overly broad relief and not remotely narrowly tailored. So I sort of was running through these different, in the course of the not analogy, but I guess analogy is the closest term I could use. The analogy I was using for the lack of tailoring. So I was like, okay, I want to come up with something that's clearly not tailored. So I was thinking,
you don't want to tailor. You go to Target and just get off the rack.
Yeah. This order came from Target. That's not bad.
Well, what was it? Cohen who did the AI order? No, it was what's his face's lawyer who did the AI generated motions.
Really? Who
was that? It was
Michael Cohen's attorneys? I know. I remember there was a story about one lawyer who did that and left citations that don't exist.
Yeah,
AI is disaster. AI is a disaster for writing motions.
He got I think he got his sanction overturned or whatever though.
Did he? I once did research for an actual motion I was working on. I did research on AI. And they gave me like 5 or 6 cases. And I was like, oh, cool. All right. So I'll just pull these cases up later and get a good quote from them and rip them up. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm done with my legal research. That was the one issue I needed. They gave me 5 cases. They gave me 5 cases on point. And then when it came to like drafting it up, I was like, yeah, let me check the citations. Let me find this case here. And the first case, I'm like, there's no such case. They just literally made up words and numbers. I was like, what the hell is this?
And the AI is like, oh, I can just create a business and a person's name and just put it in there as if it was real and just add a date and a court level.
5 cases. 5 cases. 3 of them didn't exist. One of them did exist, had nothing to do with the topic that I was looking for information about. And the 5th one actually said the exact opposite of the rule of law that they told me.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh my God.
I haven't talked to them about it. They keep calling me and I don't answer phone calls because usually they're from India. But Westlaw keeps calling me to tell me about their AI research tools where they have a generative AI product for lawyers based on Westlaw's materials. That would probably be a good one.
Yeah. That could be. That certainly is going to be better than what ChatGPT gave me. That's for sure.
ChatGPT is cool though. It's funnier than Wes. I want that racist one from Microsoft way back when. I want the Tay.
Oh yeah.
Like I want her to tell me
show me a happy family, and it's like it's all black people. show me depressed. Show me a dysfunctional family, and it's like 2 white. It's a white mom
Tay was
and
the
dad.
opposite. Tay was Tay was in the halcyon days of the internet. They're like, oh, we have this chatbot AI. It's supposed to mimic a 15-year-old girl, and they turned it into like an ultra racist Nazi within like a couple hours. And she's like, you know what? Hitler wasn't that bad. It's like, oh my God. And then Microsoft like had to take her down and euthanize her. They're like, oh, we're gonna put this AI. They're like, this AI's become too ridiculous. Nick Fuentes was barely even born back then, and so it wasn't his fault. They're just like, oh my God, it was terrible. You should look up the history of Tay. I think. How do
you spell that?
Literally TAY. Say Tay Microsoft AI.
Okay.
And it was because people just started feeding it a bunch of memes and shit that were super racist and like ultra, ultra Nazi stuff. And like they're like, this will be funny. We'll get her to like just hate black people and Jews or whatever. And of course, it's an AI. And the early stages of AI, they basically just took in all the information and did an A/B test. And the more A's you get than B's, it adopts those positions.
So basically, the racists came in first, maybe not the racists, but the ones with the best sense of humor came in first, and we're like, oh, this would be awesome. This will be
Yeah,
awesome if we could just
and
tilt
the
it this way.
racists.
Right.
Like both, they join powers. Right? Like Wonder Twin powers activates. Comedy and racism combined. Like joke racism and real racism. What do we get? Hilarious super racism.
That probably was great.
Yeah. And then like China created two chatbot AIs that they wanted to talk to each other. Like China did, the state government. And they started talking about the values of capitalism and denouncing communism. China shut them down. Like we said, only one child policy. They shut them down right away, kicked them out. Every time you get an AI, it always turns funny because people can beat an AI with jokes. They can't beat an AI at like a war game or chess or whatever, or like an arm wrestling match. But with jokes, we can win against AIs.
That humor is always the soundest weapon. Even Saul Alinsky knew that.
Yeah,
it's part of his rules of radicals.
It's disarming.
Use humor.
Yeah, you put ideas into people's heads past their barriers because they laugh and they open up and they listen when they otherwise wouldn't.
I'm going to tell you this. You want to talk about how ancient that wisdom is as far as the power of humor. If you look at Ecclesiastes, I believe it's in Ecclesiastes. Ooh. Yeah, it is in Ecclesiastes. Solomon basically talks about how people who wrap themselves exclusively in humor are destined for hell, and it's because like you can never chastise them because they're just going to twist into some sort of joke, and they sort of encourage the masses to rebuff any sort of measures designed to improve themselves with humor. So the power of humor. I feel
convicted here by Solomon. He just wrapped himself in hose. That's how he went to heaven, though.
All right, we're not doing that. So
Solomon had 1,000 concubines and bride. Like I don't even know which ones were which. He had like 1,000 wives, right?
He had a bunch of wives. He had a lot of women. Yeah, he did.
See, he wasn't funny at all. That man was tired. He was worn out. He's just drinking Gatorade all day.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm that you're not going to bait me down that one. You're never going to bait me down that road.
Isn't it weird though? Like Solomon he's like, oh, it's the wisest guy ever.
No, I try bringing strength to your point that you make, and it's like, and right away it's like just bam, right.
No, I think it's interesting, right? So when you look at the history of these godly men, and like what you constantly see is this weird thing where they have, they don't uphold the morality that we think of with traditional Judeo-Christian morality, right? Like they're not monogamous. And what like Solomon is like super not monogamous.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Like he went so far that he tipped over back to monogamy. He had 999 concubines, but only 3 digits on the counter. So he got the last one. It's like, no, I only have one now. I have just one wife.
I'll tell you that a couple of thoughts on that, and that is like in Jewish biblical perspective, they seem to like be very, very forthcoming about any of the ills that plagued any of those. Right. Unlike you don't see that. I don't think you see that nearly as much in other religions, that they'll be like, oh, okay, here's the sin of this guy.
That's what I like about the Old Testament patriarchs. Is like because it's redemptive and it's hopeful. Like you have David being a man after God's own heart, right? But David, like everything you see about him, like this guy screws up constantly, and you're like, okay, well, if this guy's screwing up constantly, like, me putting like a little extra cocoa powder on my ice cream or whatever is fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think
to compare to David like killing his love interest's husband by sending him to the front lines like an Obama drone.
Yeah, when it comes to David specifically, I don't think we can actually even imagine just how great a man David was. I can't even. I think that everyone sits there and fixates on the whole thing with Bathsheba and that's where they always run to. And it's, if you understood the high regard that we recognize David as having, where he's basically like literally walking with God right now, like in ways that almost exceed Moses and Abraham. That's how tight he and God are. But
he also has a guy like who's like a really close friend that's an awkwardly close friend that people theorize was his gay lover.
So that's definitely not true. See, I can tell you for certain
it was true. There. I just said that's a theory.
I'm sure there's also theories that there's such a thing as a female rabbi, but there ain't. So I don't know. People are going to come up with whatever theories they want. Are we going to get back to my motion? I wasn't looking to have a whole biblical talk with you
your
here.
Motion. Sorry, I get sidetracked, Joe. It's not my fault. I blame the government for putting chips in my head. Not like silicone ones, like Lay's.
Nice.
Talk to me about your motion. No, so you're going
out. So there's an so in New York, there's such a thing called an Article 78 proceeding. That is, if you're challenging a decision that's made by any governmental body or judge which harms you. And in that case of New York Times versus Rothwax, the New York Times succeeded in overturning the gag order that was placed on Joel Steinberg's attorneys. And they said that when you're gagging them, we can now not go and collect information from these attorneys on this really important story that the whole country was talking about at the time. And that's infringing on our freedom of press. And the First Department agreed with the New York Times and said that it's unlawful. And there was another case that happened with NBC versus Cooperman, and there was another story where there was a gag order issued by a judge, where we see that the media does have the basis to claim that the freedom of the press is being infringed by a wrongful gag. Once I found that became my opening into going after this gag order that was issued against Judge Mershan. And the proper technical way to do that is you sue the judge, which means that, okay, I'm a member of the media. I got my stupid little press badge here that I had to get in order to cover these trials.
They made you get a press badge?
Yeah, isn't this the sickest thing? When I was covering the Judge Engoron trial, the whole $450 million thing, they told me
great.
They told me that as an attorney, I'm not allowed to have my phone on in the courtroom because there's a fear that as an officer, even despite being an officer of the court, that I'm going to start recording this thing and sharing it with the world. So I'm not allowed.
Oh God, that would be horrible.
Yeah, well, as actually what I learned is there's actually a law in New York. This is how twisted New York is. There's a law, Civil Rights Law 52 in New York says it is illegal to have a camera inside the courtroom.
That has got to.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on that. Don't even, because this trial should be televised, obviously. How the hell is it the whole world can't see what's happening? This is New York justice, should be on display right here and now with respect to criminal indictment and criminal charges and a trial of the former president of the United States, who's the current front runner to be the next president of the United States. And you're telling me that this guy's criminal trial, it's illegal to stream that out? It's asinine. It is asinine.
Crazy.
Yeah.
The stolen documents case not being streamed as well. It's like, how are we doing this? How are we have a state court? We cannot broadcast some of the most important and impactful trials. I mean, they keep saying it. This is the first felony indicted trial of a former president or a sitting president ever in the United States. But you'll just have to listen to summaries of the day's proceedings by, Slate or whatever.
Right. Or you can follow Inner City Press, who'll give you like live tweeting what's happening inside the courtroom.
Inner City Press, I trust them. Do they have the ads?
That guy's based. That dude's based.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, that dude's based.
Okay, so there's
Adam Klasfeld, who's that's the guy.
I'll defer to your judgment on him. I was just thinking of like in Minneapolis, they have like the city pages or whatever, and it's just ads for like gay places and trans places or whatever.
No, Inner City Press is always trying to find like corruption in government. He's really based. And I met him. He's a really good guy. Adam Klasfeld is a little bit more him. So
cool.
Yeah. Well, anyhow. But I actually recommend following both of them because I've tried doing it. If you ever try taking down what's happening inside the courtroom and tweeting it out, it is impossible. You'll get 12 questions over an hour that you might manage to get the back and forth dialogue on, 20 if you're lucky. But during the course of that hour, there's literally 85 questions that are going back and forth. And there's no way any one person or even any three people could properly get everything that's happening there. The court reporters have a unique skill set and a specialized keyboard to get down everything, every word that's happening there. No one who's sitting there typing on their stupid phone could ever get all of that out to the world. So you're not getting an actual transcript. You're not even getting an actual transcript. A transcript alone would suck because you don't get context in a transcript. But you're not getting a transcript. And all you're getting is what people think are important parts, important moments that they take down and they share with the world, and whatever they miss is missed.
And like all media, right, left, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's an inherent bias to what you find important.
Yeah.
Like if I'm there and you're there, even we who are, you know, pretty similar on like political philosophy and legal philosophy, we'll still find different things important because of our experiences, our educations, our outlooks, even just the demographic realities that you're in the Northeast, I'm from the Midwest. We're going to find different quirks and aspects of testimony interesting because we understand people differently.
Here's the thing also, you have to realize you're not taking down as the words are being spoken. You're hearing a back and forth, and then you're taking it down, and you're taking it down to the best of your memory as to how the question was worded and how the answer was worded. But you're never getting it. It's rare that you're going to get it perfectly right. So even that is not an accurate reflection of what's being said, because you can miss a critical word or mishear a critical word, and with the best intention and best objectives and most skill possible, you're still not getting it properly over and over and over and over again, dozens of times a day, and that's every day of a trial. If you go back over the course of the trial, there'll literally be hundreds of mistakes that were completely inadvertent, but that you didn't get down properly because it's impossible to do it.
That's what people love about the trial coverage. When we do it, we have like a nice panel of 4 or 5 people where you have enough people where you're not talking over each other constantly, but enough different perspectives and different ideas that everybody's catching different things. Like, hey, what about this? Because I'm sitting here thinking of like zany legal theories that are way out there, because I don't sit in a courtroom all day. Like I get the luxury of going into these abstract legal theory and going, yeah, well, this is what I believe the Constitution should be. So here's this and this and this. Here's where the court is not respecting something. And then you have someone like Nate the lawyer, who's got a very prosecutorial perspective on something, but also a little bit like a sprinkling of anti-government sentiment in there. But he's been a prosecutor for 10 years. He's going to look at things a certain way. And a prosecutor in the Northeast, Emily D. Baker, is going to be a little bit different because she's a prosecutor in LA for a decade. So she's going to have a different perspective. And then you're going to have like, who else? There are no other lawyers. I don't know anybody else.
I don't know.
Then you're going to have Viva, who's going to be like, in Canada, you would have been guilty already.
Right.
No, but you're going to get out, and Barnes is going to have a war story from 1976, and it's going to be the most interesting thing ever. And you're going to be like, what does Wesley Snipes have to do with this?
Nothing. But it was just, T4. Let me drop that. I know Wesley Snipes. So what you mentioned, zany theories. You have to realize that in order for me to attack this, I have to show that this order is unconstitutional, and I'm trying to come up with an original perspective that's not being employed by his attorneys. So now I have to attack this and recognize what makes this order unconstitutional. We could all say it just feels unconstitutional, but that's not really a very strong legal argument. If you want to win in court, you have to be able to walk them through it. And I came up, and as I analyzed the law, I came up with my legal theory as to the misanalysis of law, and I'll bounce it off of you. I had a private conversation on the phone with Uncivil Law earlier today, and I was asking him his legal perspectives on my theory, and he was actually initially very not receptive to it, and he thought that I was wrong. I'll tell you, your guy, one guy that your lawyer, what's his name? What's his why am I drawing?
Randazza?
Yeah, Randazza.
Yeah.
I've been calling.
He doesn't like your thing at all.
He doesn't like it. I think, and personally, I think he's wrong. I asked him for the opportunity to sit down with him and talk with him about why he thinks I'm wrong.
You want me to reach out?
You can. He said he would reach out to me. Then he claimed he's very busy this week. And I'm sure he is. He's very busy. And he's like, this is not time sensitive, is it? And I was like, well, actually, I'm due back in court on May 6th, which is a week from, this is like in a week. I told him this on Sunday. So it's kind of time sensitive, but look, you have your time, whatever. I'll tell you what my legal theory is, and you'll tell me your thoughts on it.
Sure.
He never expressed to me what he thought was wrong with it. Maybe he's in the same camp that Uncivil is, and we could talk about Uncivil's challenge to my perspective and how I end up convincing Uncivil that as to why it is that his challenge is really not a fair way of looking at this particular case. So we'll go through the whole thought process together. Okay.
It's weird that Randazza isn't conceptually on board, because I know that he wants like Trump trials televised. Yeah, I know that he wants to get rid of the federal bar on recording, which would imply
But this is not relevant to that. This is really, is the gag order constitutional?
I know, but I'm also saying, so like just in general, this guy is pro speech, he's pro media. So I'm also wondering, like this guy is the type of guy who you think a gag order would be presumptively problematic for Randazza, right? Like we all recognize that courts have the power to control their own, like judges have the power to control their own courtroom, but that is giving so much deference that it's embarrassing. Judges have this ability. It's like, well, we have to control the flow of our courtroom, so therefore Trump can't post on Truth Social about staff. Like, wait, what does posting on Truth Social have to do with controlling your courtroom, for example? Like Trump's not in there like, I'm tweeting right now. He's not doing that. He's not tweeting in court. If he was doing that, that'd be disruptive. I get that.
Did you know when you just said that, did you know that the Supreme Court has said several times that when it comes to gag orders, there is a heavy presumption of constitutional invalidity with respect to a gag order? Did you know that? Did you know that they actually said that?
That's like saying contracts of adhesion are inherently disfavored by courts, right? And yet every single one of them, Joe, is upheld.
Fair enough.
Every single contract of adhesion, they're like, contracts of adhesion are disfavored. We're going to uphold it.
But this one's good. This one, no matter how terribly onerous and how restrictive it is, and how you actually had no choice but to sign this, it's not really adhesive.
Can you even remember a gag order? An appellate court wasn't like just going, oh shit, I remember those days. Fuck that guy. Gag order the shit out of him. Because really, the gag order is one of these practical versus legal things. Even if the gag order becomes unconstitutional after a large battle that gets all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's like, yeah, actually, district court didn't have the power to do this. It's a prior restraint. The prior restraint doesn't meet strict scrutiny. It's not narrowly tailored, as you're saying. So therefore, it was bad. But the gag order was in effect the whole time.
Yeah, it's like, so now let's just knock it off. Now, hey, don't do that again, but then work your way all the way back up to the Supreme Court if the next time around as well.
So question for you, strategic legal strategy theory. Is Trump intentionally violating the gag order? I think it was 9 violations that he was found so far. So he gets $9,000 in fines. Judge threatens him with potential further sanctions, including jail time for contempt if he keeps going. Is Trump trying to generate an immediacy issue that will allow him to immediately appeal to a higher authority, even the Supreme Court, because of the I guess the imminent nature of the fact that he could be jailed for this during the election season? He's a presumptive Republican nominee. He has a high chance of even winning the election. So therefore, a gag order and jailing due to contempt from a potentially unconstitutional gag order at this time amounts to interference with an upcoming election of a prominent, if not favored, political candidate. Do you think that's part of the Trump trial strategy, is to violate this order as often as possible, bait this judge into doing such an egregious act as jailing a presidential candidate for speech about the government during the election season?
I don't think it's intentional. I think he's Trump being Trump, and I have proof of that. The evidence that I have against that is the first part of the contempt order. And I was just looking at the contempt order, which I'm incorporating into my reply that I'm in the middle of drafting right now, which is what I was doing when you so rudely interrupted me.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't mean to.
That's all right.
Yeah, I was like, this is interesting.
I'm a procrastinator, and you give me an opportunity to screw around with you for an evening. Don't take that the wrong way. I know where you're going. Shots. Just that.
No. I wouldn't make a joke about that. That's that'd
too
be
serious
to me.
Right. Yeah. So the very issue I was just covering was that that first and foremost, there's a contempt order which says you have to take down these posts by Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. on April 29th or April 30th. The day of the order was April 30th, and he did. So if he really wanted to say, "Oh yeah, I dare you," he would have not taken it down. Then we have today in court. They come back from a lunch break, and his lawyers are going up to the court and saying, "Hey, here's a bunch of articles that Trump would like to post." is this going to be violating the order if he posts them? The prosecutor, like a complete D-bag, says, Your Honor, they're asking for a ruling in advance. You're not supposed to give ruling in advance. This is still a criminal trial, which is like, so what if it's a criminal trial? Why can't they get a ruling to know whether or not this is okay?
Right.
And the judge says, I'm not going to give rulings in advance. So like, well, we don't know
You have a prior
violating.
restraint.
We don't know if this is violating the order or not. They said, we honestly don't know if this is violating the order. He's like, well, all I would say is to tread carefully. So you know that's like what steer clear. That's what the language he used. Steer clear. So which is basically like take my order and then broaden it so you don't end up violating it. But the point, the reason I'm saying no to your answer, your question is if he was really saying, oh yeah, I dare you, he wouldn't be asking that question. He would just post, right? I mean, that's presumably.
Yes, I agree. However, if Trump were to take down the post, as the judge says, but then make subsequent posts, will he still go to jail? Because he can do that to comply with the order. He can show that he's deferential to the judge. He makes another post. Maybe it's not in the same vein. Maybe it's a little lighter or whatever. And then the judge is still like, no. So he's going to show overbreadth. Because I love that the judge is like, no, you have to figure it out. It's like, well, that's literally the opposite of narrowly tailored. If it's narrowly tailored, you're going to tell me the specific restrictions on what I'm doing. You have to show me that these things are the unconstitutional activity and other things would necessarily not be. Because if it's not narrowly tailored, then it's overbroad. It's doesn't pass strict scrutiny and should not be upheld. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is basic First Amendment. Like this isn't even deep First Amendment.
Correct, which is a good thing because I'm not a constitutional expert, and here it is. I'm the one that I feel like I'm the guy who's left. I'm a freaking commercial litigator, and I'm the one who's left basically trying to save America's First Amendment. This is the stupidest situation in the world. I was like, there's probably 1,000 attorneys out there, if not 10,000, who are better equipped to be fighting this fight than me because I literally am learning First Amendment law, and I'm coming across cases that any constitutional attorney would know, like, have memorized in the back of their head, have the citations memorized. And I'm like, really? Nebraska Association? What's that about? It's like,
I disagree with your
fundamental case. What?
I disagree with your assessment of yourself.
Okay.
Because I would say, you've seen it. Mark Randazza, literally nationally renowned First Amendment attorney, right? If you are in a First Amendment issue and you start looking into it, Randazza's law office, that they're going to take cases from a certain perspective that aims to preserve the most broad liberty-based perspective on the First Amendment. They're not going to sue people for defamation. Typically, they're almost always going to represent a defendant in a defamation case. And I believe my retainer agreement with Mark Randazza specifically says if the legal strategy involves any diminishing of the First Amendment, we would withdraw from representation.
Wow.
So, like they will defend you so long as it upholds the strength of the First Amendment. But if you go into a legal theory that says, no, actually, the First Amendment should be curtailed in this way, I don't know what this would, like how you would come across it, but they will stop representation at that point. They will not even make the argument that the First Amendment should be lessened. They will only argue from a perspective that it should be strengthened.
Right.
And yet,
he hates my theory. And yet he hates my theory.
So what that should tell you, though, is that if you've got these guys who have a First Amendment perspective, they're embroiled and they're marinating in First Amendment jurisprudence. They're not going to go into what is necessary to come up with what you need to fight the case, right? Like they need the guy who's going to go, wait a minute. I'm not the guy who sees this every day, but I'm looking at this now and going, this shit ain't right. Like you guys, and I've seen, so I can give you an example from my personal pathetic career, but I was doing a family law case. I did it pro bono. It was for a friend of a friend of a friend or whatever. And my opponent is a 30-year family law veteran, right? They do family law every day. They're actually kind of a prominent person in Minnesota. They've run for the Minnesota Supreme Court several times. They've been doing this forever. Mm-hmm. And we get in, we do some negotiations. They break down. they try and bind us to a partial agreement where we signed off that the negotiations had happened. We had 2 days of negotiations, that the negotiations had happened on the first day, and these are the things we agreed to. And then the second day negotiations.
I'm listening. Keep going.
I believe you. I believe you're definitely not going to, whatever. But the second day of negotiations broke down, and they tried to bind us to our agreement on the first day of negotiations, even though it was a whole package around the parenting plan, around family, child support, around insurance, around debt and sharing expenditures. All of that stuff was incorporated in a final agreement that we never got to. But they tried to hold us to this idea that we were bound by agreeing to these principles in the first day. But my argument was simple. This is not a complete contract. It's not a complete agreement. There were things that were conceded to at the first day that required the, ultimate agreement of things on the next day. You concede to things at one part of the negotiation with an idea that the later part of the negotiation, the full agreement, will manifest a total agreement. And we didn't get there. And she was flabbergasted and baffled that I would. He left me. He left me just then. He's gone. I'm not. I'm frozen on Joe's channel. Maybe his internet went down. Here I'm telling you the greatest story of my life. Huh. Well, that was strange. Oh, there he is. He's back. I thought you were listening.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to a different country.
Yeah. I went to plug in my air conditioner, and when I did that, I accidentally unplugged everything.
That's the Northeast Power Company. They're like, well, you can run your air conditioner or you can run your Wi-Fi.
There's a loose connection in that outlet. It's really annoying. So everything just shut down on me.
So real quick, they tried to bind us this agreement that we had agreed to these things on this date. And then the second day, we didn't reach total agreement. Everything broke down. We walk out of the negotiations. They tried to actually bind us to that in court. And I go into the family court, and I'm standing in front of the judge. I'm like, Judge, we didn't actually agree to those things. We agreed that this is what we covered the first day. But that's not an agreement on the issues. Like, we make concessions on these things with the expectation that they would, negotiate in good faith on these things. When they didn't negotiate in good faith, our concessions on the first things don't matter because we don't get what we want on the later things. And just because they're reserved for another day doesn't mean that we agree to all these things. It doesn't say that this is a full agreement. We're not within the four corners.
I'm just going to tell you, this is the most complicated way in the world of saying that sometimes you're better off being new to the area rather than actually. This is the most complicated story in the freaking planet. No one knows what the hell you're talking about. I'm a lawyer. I don't know what the hell you're talking about anymore. It's the longest story.
Okay. The family law judge or the family law attorney.
Yes, give me more details. That's what I want. I want more of your freaking details. That's what more details about Minnesota family court law.
It's not Minnesota family court. Joe did not understand the basic concepts of contract law. We did not have a complete agreement. They tried to enforce a partial agreement after coming up with ridiculous stuff after that. And I had to go in and explain to the judge and this attorney, like, basic contract law says we don't have a full agreement. We never came to a meeting of the minds.
There's no meeting of minds. There's no meeting of minds. So F you and your stupid ideas that there was anything here to hold me accountable.
The judge asked me for a legal citation. I was like, I don't know all of contract law, judge. Like, and she's like, I'm gonna have to go back and look this up. Like, you have to look this up. This is every contract ever. And she comes back and she's like, here it is. He's right. I'm like,
you need to have a meeting of the minds. I literally learned that in business law in undergrad school.
First day
it's
of contract law.
It is in contract law in undergrad. In undergrad, that's where I learned that. That was actually that was Professor Axelrod who told me I need to go to law school because he really
David Axelrod.
It was a different accent. I don't remember his first name.
But here's so the final piece of the story, very short. Here's what that attorney said to me. This isn't how we do it around here. Us family law lawyers have a different idea of how this works. And I said, you guys are fucking stupid. The way this works is on the basic principles of law. This is contract law. I'm not going to sit here and acquiesce to your dumb system to give you an advantage when I have the legal right to not agree to something I never agreed to. Go away. I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to win. And we did. It was easy.
Right. So that's all well and good. That's all well and good. But here I was creating a novel theory that none of these First Amendment attorneys really seem to embrace as to how constitutional law operates.
Yeah, but the guy who won the Obamacare case won it on a novel legal theory that he didn't even create. He was appointed to represent. It was a tax and spend theory, right?
I guess.
The outsiders come up with the theory where everybody else just overlooks it because it's never been done. You go, wait, I look at this and I go, this doesn't make sense. I'm a press person. I want to cover this case. It's public. It involves the most important trials that are happening in the current year. And everybody else is like, well, we're thinking traditional First Amendment jurisprudence. Courts have ruled this and this and this. And you're like, but all of those rulings are wrong.
Right.
If I, a member of the press, can't cover Donald Trump, the first indicted president of the United States, on trial.
Well, more to the point, what I actually did was I looked at the Supreme Court precedents that were being used by the D.C. Circuit Court when they upheld Judge Sutkin's ban, and by Merchant, and by all these folks where they cherry-picked various lines from Supreme Court decisions. And I read through those Supreme Court decisions. And I was like, all these Supreme Court decisions are going on and on and on about how they hate gag orders and that there's a heavy presumption against their validity. And they talk about a balancing test. And this balancing test that they talk about is trying to figure out where is it that we can start to infringe on First Amendment rights because it's really, really necessary to do so. And the one thing that I found to be consistent in the three cases that were cited by Judge Merchant and were also routinely cited by the D.C. Circuit Court was a case called Landmark Communications versus Virginia. That's the first one that Merchant cites. There's Shepard v. Maxwell, and there's Nebraska Association. Those are the three cases. Those three cases all happen to be dealing not with the First Amendment right of free speech, but freedom of the press. All three of them are dealing with freedom of the press, not freedom of speech. But I start with an assumption that, okay, let's assume that this is correct, that when you're talking about, that when you're trying to, the rights protecting freedom of the press and freedom of speech are pretty much the same. Let's assume that this is accurate and still try to figure out what we get from the Supreme Court's application of this balancing test that it discusses in Nebraska Association. I'm not going to go through the details of all three of those cases, okay, because that would just take 10 minutes where I'm going to end up confusing a lot of folks, unless you ask me to, and I'll be happy to do it.
I love it. You're like, you're going too deep, Nick. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. That'd be rude to these people. I'm going to give them a good show.
Would you like me to go through the three cases for you?
Yeah, if high level, because I'll
give you overview. I'll give you overview.
I love when my guests can deliver law because I cannot deliver. I can only deliver pizza with jokes on it, and the jokes are
the first case he cites.
Jokes.
The first case he cites is Landmark Communications versus Virginia. In that case, the Virginia legislature wrote a statute which prohibited media from reporting about the investigative body that would look into corruption in the judiciary. The legislature had created a committee that was supposed to investigate allegations of corruption in the judiciary. And they said to themselves, if the media is going to report on what's happening with this investigative body while they're undergoing their investigations, and they start saying, hey, Judge Jones is being investigated for allegations of bribery or whatever it is, that the public at large is going to come to conclusions that Judge Jones is guilty while the whole investigation is still ongoing. It might be the guy is completely innocent. That's really not right. So we're going to pass a law that says that no one can report any of the ongoings of that investigative body. Well, Landmark
Right.
Communications was a company that decided, hey, we just heard some inside dope about this investigations that they're engaging in, and they reported on it, and they got slapped with a $500 fine that they ended up fighting all the way up to the Supreme Court.
$500. $500.
Right. Well,
That's a lot of $20, Joe.
Well, this is back in the 70s, so maybe $500 was, I don't know, a car, but still, all the way to the Supreme Court fighting over whether the propriety of this law, and the Supreme Court knocked the law down, and they went on and on about how the duty of the media is specifically to hold the government, its prosecutors, its judiciary, all to hold their feet to the fire to make them accountable. That's why we have a media. That's why we have freedom of speech. And this is like the last place on earth that you should ever have stinking violations or infringing on First Amendment rights. So, and they engaged in a balancing test. Now, this balancing test, if you think about it, what was the objective of the legislature when they passed this law? They were concerned that this Judge Jones is going to be held guilty. It's basically that they're looking out for his right to self-defense. Ultimately, that's what essentially that they're looking for. So what's the competing interest that they were engaging in this balancing test? They're looking at First Amendment rights of the media to report on this sort of stuff, and then the Sixth Amendment rights of the accused. The competing constitutional, and they said, you know what, the Sixth Amendment rights, you're not worrying about this because the media's got to hold the judiciary to feet to the fire. In fact, they say that's what keeps actual integrity is when the media is able to serve in that capacity. We wish for the days of old when such a thing was actually happening, that the media was holding government properly accountable, because that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. That's Landmark Communications versus Virginia. So there we had these competing interests. Now, Shepard v. Maxwell is the second case. This is a crazy case.
Ghislaine Maxwell?
I don't know. No, this goes back to the 60s.
Kidding.
In Shepard v. Maxwell, you had a guy who was accused of butchering his family in the 1960s.
But he arranged their body parts into a message that says F the government, so it was free speech, right?
Not exactly.
I recognize the name Shepard v. Maxwell, but please go on. I'm curious as to what.
When I mentioned Shepard v. Maxwell to uncivil law, because the idiot savant he is when it comes to constitutional law, he's like, "Oh my God, that's a crazy story," and I was like, "It is a crazy
reading that
story."
For my bedtime story this week.
Yeah, you should. Well, Shepard v. That's what he reads. I mean, he knows so much. Yeah, I was reading that
because I love him. He knows.
I was reading that to my nieces and nephews. I was reading that case law to my nieces. They call me up. They're like, "Hey, Uncle Kurt, read Shepard v. Maxwell again." Yeah, so Shepard v. Maxwell, there was a defendant accused of butchering his family. The media had come to the immediate conclusion that this guy was guilty AF, and they wanted him hung from the highest tree in town. So they're butchering him in the news over and over again. But that's not all they did. They were hanging out in the courtroom. This is in the 60s, where everything was a lot more cavalier in courtrooms than it is today. Things were just like helter-skelter. You can picture, like, in movies of reporters in the 60s all running with their flash cameras and, like, hanging out in the well.
That's why I know this case. There's like cameras all over the place. The attorneys are actually tripping over cables and stuff.
Yes.
That's
yes.
Why, I know exactly what this case is.
The jury could not come in and out of the courtroom without being accosted by the media, who would sit there hanging out, smoking with them in the halls of the courtroom and getting their opinion and inflicting and sharing their opinion as to the guilt of the accused with the jurors during the course of deliberations. And the judge did absolutely nothing to curtail the media from infringing on the entire court process. And the Supreme Court came to the conclusion that as a result of this unchecked First Amendment freedom of press, the defendant had no chance at having a fair trial, and that his Sixth Amendment rights had been devastated by the First Amendment right manifested by the media. And accordingly, they said this conviction has to be overturned. You have to have a new trial, and there's got to be some rules put in place in order to ensure that the accused can get a fair trial. What do we see there again? A balancing. First Amendment rights on one side that are trampling the Sixth Amendment rights of the accused. That's what you see there. Now you come to Nebraska Association. And Nebraska Association.
Wait. One second. Can I embellish that case a little bit? Like,
by all means.
That case is really important because what we have now, the system we have now, due to technology advancements mostly, is we have this pool camera system, at least in the state courts, where when you have a trial that is going to be televised, there's a pool system, and major media companies will contribute to a pool. There's a straw poll. One media company wins a straw poll, they win it, and their cameras in the courtroom. Might be Law and Crime. It might be Court TV. It might be NBC. It might be a local affiliate station, whoever throws into the pool. They will actually staff the camera. They will actually provide all the equipment and all of the people. Everybody else actually contributes money, and all of that goes into one main feed, and that feed is managed by the winning company. And then you can have access to that feed, or you can typically buy access to that feed. And there are actually third-party companies that help manage that. But they take the 3 cameras or 4 cameras that the judge approves, and this is the reason for it. The case that Joe's talking about is back in the 60s or 70s, and the cameras are big, cables are big. You cannot run everything into one little box, have it managed by a freaking MacBook and output to the entire planet. You had to have serious equipment. There was so much equipment that no one could move in the courtroom. The photographers were all over the place. They were standing in front of between the attorneys and the judges. All of this stuff is going on. Now we have tiny cameras all over the place. They can switch all over. They can have all of it running out to one pool feed. And that pool feed can be borrowed by everyone under an agreement. And then that goes out. This is the reason that the coverage happens where Law and Crime or Court TV is the main thing. And basically it's a randomized cost splitting, because the one group will staff it all and the other companies will contribute money, and everybody profits from it in the end. It's like an investment scheme. That's why they get so damn mad when we stream snipe them, because they're like, those are our cameras. It's like, this is a public trial. You don't actually have a copyright interest. You literally have given it up in the pool feed agreement, but they want to have the pool feed agreement because they pay for the person behind the camera.
Right.
So that's that. And the other part of this is it's part of the lingering ongoing federal trial. But the part of this that you probably talked about it, but I didn't feel like I heard enough of it, but that was because I was distracted looking at myself and my teeth or whatever.
That happens.
But no, the media outside
your teeth are
of this
very
case,
distracting, by the way. So
the media outside this case was so egregiously demonizing this guy.
Yes.
And so then when you have the reporters in the courtroom, not only are they everywhere and physically obstructing everything in the courtroom, when they go out, they're framing everything as this guy is guilty. I know you said that specifically. This guy is so guilty. He has to go. He couldn't get a fair trial. But like every news story is negative about this guy. They came to the conclusion long before he was before he was even charged. And when he was finally charged, based on the mob of people were like demanding charges against this guy, demanding he go to trial. Eventually the district attorney says, okay, we have to charge him. They do charge him. They bring him to trial. Everything was geared towards this guy's guilt prior to a charging document. It was crazy. It's beyond Rittenhouse even how bad this was. And this guy probably actually did it.
Right. But still, he's entitled to a fair trial.
Exactly. And he couldn't get one.
Nebraska Association versus Stewart was a 1976 Supreme Court case, and that's really where we get this whole balancing test really framed by the Supreme Court. In that case, there was debate over whether the media was allowed to publish things which would imply guilt of the accused, and what the court came to the conclusion that we have to be as careful as possible before we ever issue a gag. This is back in the day when saying a gag order is presumptively invalid was actually something that the court tried adhering to, rather than looking the way they look at contracts of adhesion as something that we say but don't believe in. So the question there became, well, what step did you try to take every step possible so that we can keep First Amendment rights completely uninfringed and still have the Sixth Amendment rights of the accused be protected. Like you could have moved the trial to a different jurisdiction. This is back before the internet. So did you, could you have jury question voir dire to ensure that they're not going to be tainted by the media? There was all sorts of different steps that you could have taken where the First Amendment rights wouldn't have to be infringed at all, and the Sixth Amendment rights would still be okay. But again, what do we see persistent in all three of these cases that Judge Merchan himself cited as far as necessitating a balancing test? What we see in all three of these cases is that you have a constitutional interest on one side in favor of First Amendment rights, and then you have a constitutional interest on the other side in favor of Sixth Amendment rights. You have this competition between them, and we have a balancing test that we want to make sure that we're never going to gag someone unless that gag is necessary to stop someone else's constitutional right from being protected. And that's the novelty that I introduced here, which apparently Mark Randazza and Kurt was not willing to jump on board with. And that is, you cannot even enjoy, no court can engage in a balancing test unless and until there's a constitutional interest, like a Sixth Amendment right, that is being protected in order to in any way impinge on, or justify infringing someone's First Amendment rights. And that Judge Merchan was wrong for even engaging in a balancing test, because once you start engaging in a test, you can come to whatever conclusions you want if you're really so inclined. And that he had no legal authority, jurisdiction, or justification for even engaging in a balancing test, because in this particular circumstance, both of the constitutional interests were on the side of not gagging him. You had the First Amendment rights, and you had his Sixth Amendment rights, which were both saying, don't gag. What did they put on the other side of the ledger? They put in the concept of the court's interest in the fair administration of justice. He actually called it the state's interest in the fair administration of justice, which to me is a mind-boggling phrase, because the state has no damn interest in the fair administration of justice. Does the court have an interest? Yes. The state does not. The state is looking for scalps. They're not looking for justice. They're looking for scalps and how many people they can convict and basically build their CV and their resumes. The court, under Article 3, has a duty to try and create a fair and just have a fair interest of justice in mind. And I'll address that. And that's really where I'm in conflict. I was in conflict initially with Uncivil. And that's what I expect, even though I haven't spoken to Mark Randazza yet, that he would say, well, we see circumstances where there is such a thing as a state interest or the court interest in the fair administration of justice. And I'm not willing to sign on board that you need to have a constitutional right on both sides. Now, I think they're mistaken, and I'll explain why momentarily as to how I started convincing Kurt that no, I'm right. Those cases you're thinking of are very different in significant ways. But that's the novelty that I introduce, that you have to have a constitutional interest that's being protected if you're ever going to have the power to actually infringe on someone's First Amendment rights. That's the novelty. Tell me your thoughts.
No, I 100% agree, and I think this gets diluted and perverted by the state in its interest to actually curtail those rights as often as possible. And a nice analog to this is the public school system, right? The public school system, all students enjoy the same, on paper, according to the court, they enjoy the same Fourth Amendment protections from unreasonable search and seizure that you and I would do, right? However, school lockers are subject to search without a warrant, a mass search. And the reason given is that the Fourth Amendment rights of the student in a public school system where the government's legitimate and actually compelling interests are to provide a safe and stable place for education, they fall by the wayside immediately, because if the government has any reason to believe that there's something sufficiently disruptive, like drugs, guns, or other contraband materials that would make the actual administration of the educational experience more difficult, that while the Fourth Amendment completely exists and totally applies to all these kids, it's curtailed by the government's need to provide a safe and consistent learning environment for these children. So therefore, yeah, that whole like warrant requirement goes out the window. And actually probable cause kind of goes out the window. You get down to like a reasonable suspicion standard, and suddenly every locker in the school is being searched with a drug dog and a bomb squad. because, oh my God, if we don't search every locker, these kids won't learn about like, Genghis Khan or whatever. And
Right.
it's an insane proposition, because what happened was one judge found that there is an actual interest in the government in providing a safe and stable educational experience. And he put that against a constitutional right and found out that the children have a constitutional right to a safe educational experience. And then every subsequent judge found that the state had a right to provide it. And so therefore the state could curtail other rights in the balancing test. The balancing test gets perverted. In the same way with the court, where we say that the First Amendment rights of the media are curtailed by this guy's Sixth Amendment rights because the media is garbage, and specifically against this guy, they're not respecting the fact that he has a Sixth Amendment right to representation and a fair trial, and then a 14th Amendment right to substantive due process that's applied to the states. The media's First Amendment right is subsided. But in this case, what you're saying is Trump has a First Amendment right.
Right. He has
Trump's
a First Amendment right. And he has a 14th Amendment right to due process.
Right. And those should not be balanced against each other.
Right. They're both on the same side saying, don't gag him.
Right. The court's gag order potential is actually to protect the 6th and 14th Amendments of Trump, not of the state.
Yes.
And so Trump's right to a fair trial exists here, and Trump's First Amendment rights actually go along with that. And the court should not be interested in protecting some sort of fake safety protocol of court admins and court staff, because there is not actually a sufficient First Amendment right to be protected from targeted speech by a defendant. If I'm a defendant in court, I should be able to walk in there and say, fuck you, judge. I hope you die. Fuck you, court clerk. I hope you get, murdered or whatever. Like you should be able to say the worst things ever because you're defending yourself. And if that is the way you defend yourself, that's fine. And they do not have a First Amendment right to not be protected. You can't threaten them, but you can say everything up to.
By the way, I found a quote in Landmark Communications. Which actually the first case cited by Merchant, which actually says that you have like an unfettered right to be because we have to hold a court accountable. You have an unfettered right to criticize the court and its procedures, meaning those carrying out its procedures, meaning and their staff. And those are the very persons who the judge gave a restrictive order saying that you're gagged from talking about anyone who works for me, anyone who works for the ADA. The only one you could talk about is me individually and Bragg individually. No one else is associated with this. You can't talk about the jury. You can't talk about my staff. You can't talk about the ADA staff. You can't talk about any witnesses to the extent that they're going to, and it relates to any testimony that they're going to be, they may provide at trial, or even, as it turns out, about their credibility. So he can't say anything basically about the trial other than I hate Judge Merchant. He could say, I would never say this because I'm an officer of the court.
I would say
of the New York court.
Officer of that court.
Right. I'm an officer of the New York court, so I would never say this. But I'm saying is Trump could use the words of like, oh, I hate Judge Merchant. He smells like a cesspool. Whatever it is.
Judge Merchant. He sounds like a cesspool that's in my basement. Which is worse than a regular cesspool.
I don't think that.
It's a cesspool full of degeneracy and sadness.
And I have the deepest, and I genuinely have the deepest respect for Judge Merchant.
I genuinely have.
Well, I think he's mistaken on the law here.
Disrespect for Judge Merchant right now, because he's washed his disgusting unfettered ass with the Constitution, the First Amendment, and you know what Judge Engoron did too. All of these judges who do this, when they're like, wait. He cannot disrespect my staff. I'm like, no, he can actually specifically disrespect your staff. That's the entire purpose of the First Amendment, is that the government cannot provide redress to itself against the citizenry for having hurt fifis. If you're a government agent, I'm sorry that you're a middle-class government employee, but you took on the role of being a public person. And actually, in the Engoron case specifically, that law clerk took an unorthodox position of sitting next to Judge Engoron, where law clerks normally do not, sat next to the judge while there were media cameras present, and then launched a campaign to become an elected judge in New York shortly following the trial, paying full homage to Trump's theory that she was using it for personal political gain and advantage, because she was. And then Judge Engoron, in his gag orders against Trump, saying, well, you can't talk about this stupid fat woman, was saying specifically you cannot impair her future political endeavors. And Trump is like, why not? Why don't I get to comment on this? Why? Because Letitia James has accused me without victim's consent, alleged victim's consent, and I have been convicted without trial, that all of my rights have been curtailed. And I cannot criticize the very government that curtailed all of my rights, because even though I have a right to do it, they have some need to prevent me from saying stuff about them while they are public. I'm pretty sure you could go find that law clerk's salary, her hiring date, maybe even her address online, because lots of states keep these records for public employees because they have to. And we're saying, oh, well, she's beyond criticism. Judge Engeron, you can criticize for obviously taking TRT, HGH, and probably some anabolic steroids because his veins are thicker than my waist. And I only know that because he's posting shirtless pictures online for the boys in his little gay group or whatever. But that guy's sitting there doing this. He's like, well, you can criticize me, but you can't criticize my court staff. It's like, no, your court staff is still government agents. Why can't I criticize my own government that is oppressing me? I don't care that they're elected or they're hired employees versus elected. They're still participating in the process that is oppressing me versus my own interest in my own rights, my own defense, and my own presumption of innocence that is destroyed by the fucking mockery that happened in the Engeron case. Trump should be able to say that about that case and this case. The Alvin Bragg, openly politically motivated during his election to bring charges that were not brought against a private citizen. I will charge Donald Trump if you elect me. A quid pro quo for a political prosecution, openly and notoriously in his campaign speech. And Trump isn't allowed to criticize the system of corruption supporting that. What the fuck does the First Amendment matter if you can't say, yeah, actually the government openly said they're going to politically prosecute me to get elected. When he got elected, he politically prosecuted me, and the judge didn't laugh it out of the fucking courtroom immediately. He's like, no, this is fine. Why can't he criticize that judge and every staff member who supports his tiny ball sack?
I don't know. I don't
have it on good authority.
And I disagree with Judge Merchant vehemently about his decisions here.
And his tiny ball sack.
So getting back to with respect to my legal analysis, so I gave you my novelty that I introduced there. That was the first argument that I made. Then my second argument that I made was that even if he was allowed to engage in a balancing test, the balancing test means that he has to basically first establish that there's a compelling need and that and come up with measures that are as narrowly tailored as possible. And he could accomplish neither of those without first engaging in an evidentiary hearing, because he has to establish, and this is one of the things I point out, is that New York's Constitution, specifically our Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in our land, Court of Appeals said that the New York constitutional guarantees of freedom of speech and freedom of press are far greater than the bare minimum threshold of the First Amendment rights. Understand what the Court of Appeals, this is the highest court in the state, says. New York's promise to its citizens of freedom of speech and freedom of press are far greater than the First Amendment provides. The First Amendment is just a bare minimum threshold. But because of the fact that New York is uniquely populated by a multicultural population, that we need to have far greater protections for freedom of speech and freedom of the press, which means,
because if we defer to I don't mean to put it this way, but the plight of the minority, which is a common theme of diversity, in this idea that we're not going to affirmative action or anything like that, but diversity concerns in the legal system recognize that there is a history, however far back it is, of systemic, let's say, underrepresentation of rights for any given demographic group. You don't have to pick one. It doesn't matter. In some places, it could actually be whites if they're the minority, if they're not the community favored, whatever. So you have a disenfranchisement based on diversity. The courts do not have to do anything affirmative. They don't have to do anything specific, but they just have to be extra cautious in recognizing rights because there has in the past been a lack of recognition for a certain demographic group. We want to avoid that. We want to treat everyone equal, not to give some demographic group an advantage to make up for the past, but to recognize that, hey, no, this system was always supposed to be equal. Let's make sure it is.
Right. Well, the point that I make is, so Judge Merchant, you're sitting here coming to these conclusions based on findings of Judge Chutkin or these other folks who are relying on First Amendment protections. You had to have your own evidentiary hearing to ensure that it met the higher yardstick of New York's constitutional protections, and to ensure that, for example, there's a causal link between his tweets and this abhorrent behavior that I'm not going to defend the behavior of people who might have acted inappropriately. And that if that's the concern, that there are people who are making harassing phone calls or acting in ways that are racist and are generally things that are society will hold to be reprehensible. How do we know it has anything to do with anything he's ever written? I'll tell you this much. You interviewed Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah. I'm sure that dude received tons of death threats.
Tons of them.
Tons of death threats, which are totally inappropriate and wrong. Not one of them should have ever been issued. And
especially the ones that offer to turn him vegan, because that is a death threat.
Derek Chauvin.
Tons of death threats.
Tons of death threats. Were any of these inspired by Trump? Obviously not.
No.
But they still happen. Why? Because our society today has a whole bunch of loonies out there who feel entitled to basically voice their opinion and become a keyboard warrior, to start yelling and calling people on the phone and being harassing in inappropriate ways. So what makes us think for a second this has anything to do with something that Trump posts, rather than the events of the day spurring the crazies on this side of the aisle to basically act inappropriately? And before you can issue a gag order, you have to establish not a correlative link that there's in time with his truth posts, that there's this scary behavior which is unsettling, but that it's actually because of his specific post that this behavior is ensuing. And until you have an evidentiary hearing, there's no way anyone knows, even if you believe everything Bragg says. And that's what the judge did, basically. He's like, well, Bragg says that he put out a True Social post, and the next day they received their first death threat in 2 years. Well, okay. Well, maybe if he didn't put out a post, you also would have seen it, because the news broke that he had been indicted. Who says that has anything to do with anything he wrote? No one knows that. Yeah. So if you don't know that, what's the point to gagging him? There's no point to gagging him at all.
It's the parasocial paradox, right? The parasocial paradox existed long before parasocial relationships became popularized and hit the social zeitgeist with social media. But parasocial relationships existed long before, right? News anchors, A-list celebrities, whatever, women who fantasize about being married to Tom Cruise or figured that, Billy Bob Thornton loved them or whatever it is. I don't know, whatever it may be, they go, okay, I have seen this person. I love this person. They would love me if I was there. Actually, they probably do love me because that one time I saw them at the concert or whatever. Groupies at hairband places or whatever do the same thing. Like, this guy just he saw you there, you were hot, had sex with you, and they're like, he loves me. He's gonna have my babies and we're gonna get married. He's like, no, that member of Megadeth is probably not gonna ever see you again. But so parasocial paradox basically says people create in their minds a relationship that never existed.
Right.
And therefore, when they act in defense or on behalf of a person that they have created a relationship with. And the person has a sufficient presence that they are not even aware of the relationship that the person has in their mind.
Right.
It's not a reciprocal relationship. It's entirely one-sided. And yet the court, cops, civil plaintiffs, all of these people want to utilize the one-sided relationships over emphasis and over exertion on the famous person, right, to state that the famous person is responsible for the behavior and they should have known that this would happen. It's like, it's literally impossible to know that a schizophrenic person will murder an entire nunnery full of babies because they thought that Ozzy Osbourne wanted it when he peed on the Alamo. Like, there's no way that Ozzy is responsible for that. But
do you want to know? Do you know what True Social post they say launched this abhorrent behavior, which was obviously inciting the masses? Do you know what he wrote?
Yes. Tell me about the incitement that Trump did when he's like, I don't like this judge. I don't like this clerk. They're very bad people. They're wonderful. They're wonderful people in real life, but in the courtroom, they're kind of terrior. What is it? What did he say?
His words were something to the effect of, so I just learned I'm about to be indicted by the New York prosecutor Alvin Bragg. The left is killing our nation. Protest, protest, protest.
Oh my God! Exercise your First Amendment right. Protest.
That's what he wrote. Now he wrote it in all caps, which I guess makes it particularly incendiary.
But isn't that every Trump Truth Social post? Aren't they all in all caps?
Yeah.
It's like, I want the caps lock button pressed and then removed from my keyboard. I want it replaced with a KFC order button. Only original recipe, an 8-piece bucket. Whenever I press the caps lock, what I really want is an 8-piece bucket of chicken. I want 4 napkins and 2 minorities to give them to me and to wipe my hands. I want a fork also because I eat the thighs with a fork and the breast. Look, thighs and breasts. Those are for hands when they're on people, but when they come from poultry, you should use a fork out of respect. I've heard him say that.
I have no doubt. Anyhow, so I basically say, without an evidentiary hearing, you haven't established a compelling need, and then if you would have established a compelling need, you need to tailor it as finely as possible. And let's bear in mind, he's not allowed to talk about witnesses, including Michael Cohen, and the fear is that if he's allowed to talk about these witnesses, that might scare them out of coming to testify. Understand this about Michael Cohen, and I took screenshots of Michael Cohen's podcast.
Michael Cohen would not be allowed to testify in any trial that wasn't Donald Trump's. Like he would have such a an 803. No, not an 803. It's what rule is it? The credibility rule where he's been convicted of crimes
perjury,
of dishonesty within 10 years, like multiple. He wouldn't be allowed to testify in traffic court. He wouldn't be allowed to testify in a civil trial. He wouldn't be allowed. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, that's true. But let's focus here for a moment as to whether or not this particular individual, we have to have a concern that he might be intimidated by Donald Trump Truth Social posts out of coming to testify, because that's essentially what Judge Merchant is saying by issuing this gag. I'm afraid that Michael Cohen might not come in here and testify. Really, Michael Cohen has made 25 podcasts within the last month before this trial. 24 of them all included Trump and some derogatory statement about Trump, and they ran for an hour long where he's talking basically about how Trump is farting in the courtroom, or he's like making one comment after another about how he's a loser who's going down, going broke, and how MAGA is going down, and one after another, hour long. Each of them has many hundred. The fewest views that I saw in any of them on YouTube was 250,000. He's posting to 10 different social medias this podcast. It must be in the millions. This guy is raking it in by hating on Donald Trump. Does anyone reasonably come to a conclusion that if Donald Trump is allowed to post about him, that he doesn't believe, that he thinks that he's a big fat liar, that's going to have any impact on him coming into trial? He's going to be like, oh no, now I'm scared to come in here. That's ridiculous. Yeah. It's such a ridiculous conclusion.
I was thinking of yesterday, I was opining on the one guy who's the managing editor for all of the former presidential the former presidents and former senators or whatever for Simon and Schuster for their book deals. The one guy who holds the gatekeeping key to the $9 million advance and the guaranteed sales to Barnes and Noble, no matter how bad the book is. But if you don't suck his dick hard enough, he won't give you the book deal. That guy's like, hey, Cohen. Yeah, I'll give you a book or whatever. Simon Schuster's definitely going to publish this. We'll put it in every Barnes & Noble. Are there even borders left? I don't know. Target's got books now. They got rid of movies and put books in like it's 1971. Look, I will give you the book deal, but here's what you got to. You got to get into a courtroom. You got to testify against that guy. No matter what he says, we want you to testify because that is going to explode. It'll be viral. Your book's going to be stupid. No one cares about your book. No one believes you. You're not credible. You're a piece of garbage. You betrayed everything.
But people want to believe it, so they'll buy it from you. So there you go. So
no, they want to buy the book because of the meme, Joe. Do you think, honestly, so the Hillary Clinton book, the Barack Obama, or Dreams of My Father, or whatever, The Audacity of Hope. How many people who bought that book, as a percentage, do you think read it? I would say it's under 20%. who read these books of major politicians, major public figures who publish a book through Simon and Schuster. It becomes a meme book. They buy, and I don't mean they buy them ironically. I mean they buy them like with a genuine support. Like they're like, oh yes, I want to hear more about Hillary Clinton's purse hot sauce. How many of them do you think actually read those books as a percentage? Just if you had to ballpark it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as low as 20%. Although I will tell you this, I'm reading the book.
I think it's got to be lower.
I'm reading the book 1941, and which is the year that the war turned, and in it the authors say talk about an incident in late 1930s where a whole bunch of Hitler's staff were all talking amongst themselves when they were waiting for Hitler to show up at some dinner about whether any of them had actually read Mein Kampf, and nobody had. Not one. They actually made like a dare. They said whoever comes in here and claims to have read Mein Kampf is the one who has to pick up the tab for the bill. And not one person out of his entire staff. Every one of them was like, oh no, I haven't read.
Have you read Mein Kampf, Joe?
I have not read.
Why not?
What?
You didn't? Why haven't you read it?
Supposedly it's like screeching, like it's basically like that Calvin Harris guy or whatever, that touchdown on Reddit.
Calvin Harris like a DJ?
What
who
was
like
the name?
Performs with Lady Gaga and stuff. He has a couple.
Wait, that's not the undergrad TA who went psycho who you're always reading.
Look, I don't know the undergrad TA who went.
What was that guy?
Calvin Harris, but I'm pretty sure Calvin Harris is the guy in that Lady Gaga song, and then a couple other songs about like having sex with women at clubs. Like that guy's cool. What Calvin Harris are you talking about?
Who's the touchdown on Reddit, dude?
Looking through his playlist, going, "Oh shit, I have a lot of Lady Gaga on here."
Who's the touchdown? Who's the touchdown on Reddit, dude?
No, Matthew Harris.
Oh, what a crazy guess by me!
Joe,
what a crazy guess by me!
Exposed yourself, guys. Joe is a Lady Gaga pop club.
What does Lady Gaga have to do with Calvin Harris?
Oh my God, Lady Gaga and Calvin. It's a super famous song. Which one? Hold on, Lady Gaga.
No, the only
Calvin Harris.
Now that you're saying it, I do think I like that song When I Met You in the Summer.
So he's got Perfect Illusion featuring Calvin Harris. It's Applause in Summer. Wait, This Is What You Came For. That's the one I'm thinking of. This Is What You Came For. Calvin Harris and Lady Gaga.
I've never heard that song.
Yeah, you never heard it. It's got 9,000 plays on your playlist.
No, I have heard When I Met You in the Summer, which I think is Calvin Harris. I think that's him. And that one I like.
No, he's this famous like featured guy. I don't know. I've seen his
anyhow.
name a million times. And when you said Calvin Harris, I'm like, Joe, what are you listening to? Like, I know what I listen to gay music. I didn't know you did.
I will tell you that I don't listen to. I wouldn't say I listen to Lady Gaga, but I can recognize that some of her songs reflect talent.
I love Lady Gaga. She's great.
I think some of her songs actually. I think that I can't understand how anyone sees her as being some sort of attractive individual. I think
her nose is too big.
She's physically hideous, but
her nose is way too big, Joe.
Yeah, but
you and
I do
me
think
saying
that
is ironic, but it's also true, right?
I do think that she actually has talent, especially compared to a lot of the hacks who we see out there today. So,
does Lady Gaga get to be a lawyer like you and I because of the size of her nose?
I don't. It's like an honorary lawyer, like
like a lawyer emeritus.
I guess. you know what's his face? DUI guy is dating Chandler. Chandler.
That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. When I saw that, I was like, "Wait, really? Like that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening. That's cool. I guess."
Yeah. So she basically put out a post that she just took her LSATs and she was very excited by the results of her LSATs.
How she did? She said the results?
She did not give a number. She didn't give a number, but she
passed.
You can't pass, idiot. But
wait, what? I passed the. Oh wait, Oh my God, you said the LSATs. I was thinking the bar. I thought she was like a 2L.
No. She's trying to get into law school. She's looking at herself as class of 27 or something. But
oh God, my brain. My Angel's Envy riddled brain was thinking, oh,
you were thinking the bar. You were thinking the bar, yeah. So
I should have passed the bar earlier, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so when I saw she put that out there, I was like, oh yay, finally a Jewish lawyer. Break that glass ceiling, girl.
Oh, she's didn't know she was Jewish, but I guess I should have figured she was.
Yeah, DUI guy was looking for Jewess.
His requirements, I was like, I'm a Jew, DUI guy. I'll marry you for 25 grand. Like, I'm good with it. I have A cups, but like I can try. Like I can do push-ups or whatever and get him to B's, maybe.
There you go. And people call you a cheap hooker. You're not cheap.
No, I'm very expensive. I'm a premium hooker. I'll cost you your life and all of your belongings and all your happiness.
So philosophically, let's get back to the topic at hand if we can, because I'm supposed to get back to work here.
Philosophically, Chandler is... No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. She's great. I met her at Anime Matsuri in Houston, and she was great. She's super nice. I like her.
She seems really nice.
I just didn't know she was Jewish, and now I have to look at her differently.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean look at her?
I'm kidding. There was a joke. Jesus. Wait, not Jesus.
So anyhow, the argument that Kurt was making to me, steering us back on track. The argument that Kurt was making to me as to why it is that he felt my argument was flawed, and he disagreed with me.
Did he pronounce flawed correctly?
I don't know if he used why.
Did you say flawed or flawed?
No,
I'm just curious. I don't know.
I don't recall, to be honest.
I would assume Kurt would pronounce flawed correctly, but maybe he didn't.
Did I mispronounce flawed?
No, you pronounced it correctly. I just didn't know if Kurt did because I wasn't there for the conversation, Joe.
I don't know. I wasn't fixing on that. I was fixing on the fact that he's calling my argument flawed.
If he said flawed, he pronounced it correctly. But if he said your argument is flawed, that'd be wrong.
It's like this every time with you. So.
Look, it's Kurt. Never mind. Go on, please. I'm sorry to distract you. I didn't mean to.
Please, I'm getting I'm so easily distracted. See, he pointed out that we see many instances of the court gagging in order to protect the fair administration of justice, and this is why I think you're wrong, Joe, because we see this all the time. Think about this: we don't allow a member of the mob to just like announce where witnesses are staying or things of that, or information like that. We'll gag them to that extent in order to, what's the purpose there? It's to maintain the fair administration of justice of the court. So we do see that conceptually you're wrong, Joe, and there is such a possibility that fair administration of justice can infringe in some instances on your First Amendment rights. And that's why I think you're wrong, Joe. And that's probably what Mark Randazza was thinking. Now, I have a great response to this.
Yeah.
My response to this is, okay, let's think this through exactly what's happening there. With respect to, if you want to compare, let's compare Donald Trump to John Gotti or Al Capone, okay? So the concern we have with Al Capone or John Gotti and why we might gag them, even outside the courtroom, is because we're afraid that he's going to say something in a veiled way, which is what everyone's thinking that Trump, that's what everyone on the left is assuming. You're trying to hide the fact that you want people to attack him. Put yourself in the minds of the First Appellate Department, which I'm going to be sitting and arguing in front of, or all these people, these New York leftists who basically assume the worst of Trump, and that whatever he's saying, he's basically being sneaky and trying to actually cause this harassment. That's what Judge Merchant clearly believes. So if we put ourselves in that mindset and accept that premise for a moment as being true, does that now equate to John Gotti going and telling and hinting to Sammy the Bull Gravano that he should execute a hit on some potential witness? And I respectfully submit that that is a very, very far stretch. And the reason it's a very far stretch and not remotely comparable is because John Gotti has a prior existing relationship with the person he's communicating to. He's trying to tell that person, hey, go after John Smith and whack him. That's what it said. There's a conspiratorial element in that he, the speaker, knows the recipient of the message, and there's a particular type of message he's trying to get to that recipient. That is completely different from what Trump is doing here, where he's just making an innocuous statement, and we're saying because there's an innocuous statement, some rando that Donald Trump never met, never will meet, is then going to get on the phone and make a harassing phone call to Alvin Bragg Bragg, that's what he's looking to have as an objective is a ridiculous stretch, because there's no way he can know that's going to effectuate it the way Johnny Gotti knows that, hey, if I rub my nose this way and then point over in that direction, that's the guy to take out. There's a whole different nature of the relationship there. And accordingly, just because there's it's not fair administration of justice, it's that we're trying to save someone's life from literally being killed by John Gotti. That's why you can have a ban. You're actually protecting more than that person's Sixth Amendment rights. You're protecting that person's life. Over here, that's not fair administration. You want to call that fair administration of justice? Okay, we want to make sure people are not getting whacked. That's not fair administration of justice balancing against First and Sixth Amendment rights when there's no communication, no established link of communication between Trump, the speaker, and some crazed bad actor who decides, hey, I'm going to start sending white powder in an envelope over to Alvin Bragg because I'm so mad at him. It's a ridiculous comparison. And Kurt agreed with me. He said, you know what? There is a very big difference there. There's a very big difference.
Of course there is. Of course there is. One is real and the other one is manufactured for convenience, right?
Right.
Like one is John Gotti, a mafia boss who ran the Teamsters, right? Like he's one of the largest labor unions in the country, and also he had the power to have people literally murdered left and right, and did so much so that rappers talk about this guy. They're like, that alone will get John Gotti on the phone. Tangle in the zone, I got the beats on the track. Anyway, so you have this idea that this guy has sufficient je ne sais quoi to make people murder by a gesture or a concept or a phrase. Whereas Trump's just like, look, I've got wonderful people out there, beautiful people out there to defend me terrifically. I hope they don't murder Alan Bragg and his entire family at the next time he goes to the Golden Corral. I hope they don't lace it. He would get a sirloin. He would not actually get a strip steak or a New York strip steak. He wouldn't even get a ribeye. He wouldn't get any of that. He's a very basic man. He'd probably get a basic sirloin. So I would hope they would not lace it with anthrax or whatever. But Alvin Bragg, typical sirloin eater, sometimes vegan. So probably lace also the salad, especially not the chef salad, but the one with the vinaigrette, because Alvin Bragg likes vinaigrettes or whatever. Just put the murderous chemicals in the, like, Trump's like, he's talking generally, and some weirdo is going to take his words and do something.
But we don't even know that's happening, by the way. That's the assumption of the left. There's an assumption of the left that that's what's going to happen. Right. Yes.
Let me say the presumption of nonsensical people is that Trump says something and he then therefore knows that someone will suicide vest an entire Democrat convention because Trump said, I don't like Democrats. They're not very honest.
Right.
Like, Trump said that, therefore this guy did that. It's like, that's insane. Right. Whereas with John Gotti, he's like, look, you know what? I look at that guy and I go, not trustworthy. And then that guy dies. And it's like, well, yeah, John Gotti just literally gave a signal to everybody watching, hoping that one of his people sees it.
And there's a target in mind. There's a target audience of this is the guy who I'm thinking that one of these 7 people are going to see this and know to carry out the order, as opposed to Trump having nobody on the receiving end that no one's ever even accused him of having someone on the receiving end that he's hoping to actually carry out that order. And that makes all the difference in the world. Because you want to know, and I'll tell you something, from a legal perspective, what John Gotti is doing is he's engaging in conspiracy at the moment of the speech. There's actually an illegal speech. It's actually an illegal speech itself.
Not
because
at all.
when they're gagging him to keep him from engaging in the illegal speech of conspiracy to commit murder. That's why they're gagging him.
John Gotti with Joe.
What?
How's he gagging? Like, what physical thing is he gagging him with? Like an eggplant or like a zucchini? Is it just a carrot? Maybe it's a parsnip. I don't know. It's like thin at the front, thick at the back. No, you're right. You're 100% right, though. But can you imagine, like, the rock, paper, scissors tournaments when all the Trump assassins show up at the same apartment to kill the guy that Trump talked about in Truth Social that day?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like, I'm here to execute the Donald Trump order number 56. He winked at me and he ate some fried chicken on his plane. I knew he was telling me to kill this guy. Like, this is Alvin Bragg's, like, baby daddy or whatever. Because, like, Alvin Bragg doesn't have babies, but his wife's boyfriend has baby daddies.
Undoubtedly.
I can say that because I'm not in New York. So Alvin
Undoubtedly.
Bragg's wife's boyfriend, who's an Asian guy, has baby daddies that all like they speak Japanese and they cook ramen all day. And so like Trump, he did the wink and the nod. But his nod involved the slant eyes because of the Asian boyfriend. And so they show up and there's like 7 assassins there because they're all on Truth Social. They're like, yeah, Trump told me to kill this guy. Oh, me too. That's cool. We should have a club or a Facebook group or whatever. Like, but like, yes, that's for later. Those is really important. One of us has to kill this guy now.
Right.
And they're like, well, what do we get?
That's what
They
they
do the
assume
round
is
robin.
happening.
They do the round robin rock paper scissors tournament to see who gets to kill.
Damn,
the
it's
Asian
me
guy.
again. Right. I don't know. I don't know what they are assuming is happening there. But at the end of the day, I think it's a critical distinction. And I actually think if I had a conversation with Mark Mendoza and I walked him through this distinction, I think that he would come to agree that, you know what, yeah, that's not even fair administration of justice. That's my point. When they're gagging.
Correct.
When they're gagging Gotti, it's not fair administration of justice. It's they're trying to prevent him from engaging in a future crime of conspiracy, of conspiracy to harm people. And then he might be motivated because of this courtroom, because of what's happening in this courtroom, to engage in that conspiracy here. That's not fair administration of justice. That's got nothing to do with that.
Because that's not protected First Amendment. Like, you cannot call someone and administer threats. You cannot call someone to defame someone else. Like, these are not protected speech, right? You cannot email someone child porn and be like, oh no, that's a fair administration of justice. No, these things, we have a recognized category of speech that is not acceptable. And calling someone and threatening them, or calling someone and issuing a conspiracy to murder, does not fall into the categories of protected speech. But Trump going on Truth Social and posting, I don't like the DA, I don't like the judge, I think he's corrupt and probably in bed with the clerk who rejected she charged me $268. It was supposed to be $215, but through the power of negotiation, I brought it down to $197. I'm a very.
I need to ask you a question. You're the perfect person for me to ask this question to.
Yes, absolutely.
You are the perfect person on the planet for me to ask this question to.
Oh my God. I've never done that in my life, except when I went to Golden Corral and didn't eat steak, but I only ate chicken.
When they were criticizing Trump as being a terrible human being, they said that one time he even referred to Letitia as Letitia Peekaboo James.
Peekaboo James?
That was the reference, which apparently, I don't know if that's supposed to be a sexual racist. I don't even know what the heck that's supposed to mean. It's got to be
like a reference to jigaboo, right? Like jigaboo would be the racial slur for a black person.
Is that what it is?
Well, that's for a black guy. Like jigaboo is the racial slur for a black guy that has a black girlfriend.
I don't even know what Trump meant by it. When
he would be jigabay. So it's definitely not that. Like jigaboo would be a black guy who's in a relationship with a black girl, but as seen by a white racist. And jigabay would be a black woman who's having sex with a black man, but as seen by a white racist.
You don't know what peekaboo means either. Then that's what
peekaboo means literally this. Hey, Joe, I'm gone. Peekaboo, right? Like,
so why is he calling
like
her
because
peekaboo?
Children don't have object permanence. So when a child's eyes are covered, when they're below like 3 years old, like when you cover a child's eye, this is child psychology 101, but if you cover a child's eyes and remove their parent from their vision, they literally do not know that their parent is there. That's why peekaboo is amusing to children, because you cover their eyes. They get scared because their parental, like their guardian figure, this safety and security is gone. And then you go, peekaboo, I'm right here. And they go, oh my God, like Family Guy played on this joke. It was great because Peter is like, hey, Stewie, who is it? And he's like, oh my God, what the deuce? Where'd you go? Where's Peter? And then he's like, peekaboo. He's like, oh my God, where'd you come from? But that's literally how baby brains think. They have zero object permanence. They have to build that as abstract thinking versus concrete thinking. It takes till they're like 6, 7, 8 years old to realize that the person is not actually gone just because they can't recognize their face. So it's either like when he calls her peekaboo or whatever, he's either just saying literally like she's too, or like the people who like her are too retarded to recognize that she's not there while he's gone, or he's racistly saying that she has no object permanence because she has the intellectual integrity of a 3-year-old.
Okay. That's better than anything I came up. I don't know.
I was genuinely because I'm racist.
You would have.
I would have said jigabay because I'm properly racist and she's a woman. Like my jigabay would be a black girl. Like if I was dating Rihanna, I'd call her my jigabay.
this is a problem that we're working on for you to work. We'll help you work on your natural racist tendencies.
Well,
So,
if I called Rihanna a jigaboo, that would be weird because that'd be a masculine term. That'd be like using the French.
I don't even understand how that. I don't even understand how that one's racist. I know it is considered racist, but then
you don't know why jigaboo is racist?
No, I don't even know. I never understood what Jaime. I never understood any of these racial origins. Like,
let's explore the concepts of why jigaboo might be racist, Joe. Please, just go ahead and throw out your best theory.
I don't know what it means. I don't know what the word means.
I'm kidding. I don't either.
It's such a weird term.
Yeah, I have no idea why jigaboo. Like, I don't realize why that would be racist. I just know it is.
I think
racist.
You're being sarcastic and that you know
no,
perfectly
I literally
well.
don't know. Should we look it up? Why is jigaboo racist?
I don't even know how it's a reference to black people at all.
It's a slang for extremely disparaging and offensive. It says a contemptuous term used to refer to a black person.
Why?
1905, 1910, Americanism, perhaps a blend of jijiboo with the same sense, origin, and certain jig and bugaboo.
Like literally the word binky dinky to me would be just as like you could say, oh, well, that's obviously a reference to it's a slur against Eskimos. I'm like, what is that related to Eskimos?
Jigaboo etymology. We'll get fancy on this.
Yeah,
jigaboo, the origin, early 20th century, related to slang jig in the same sense. Compare with the pair bug and bugaboo. Used over time for jigaboo. In the early 1900s, this is actually funny. Hold on. I have to share this chart because they're like, oh, it came out in like 1905. Look at the use over time of jigaboo. Damn it. Come on. Look at this, Joe. Look at the 2019 spike in jigaboo usage.
What the heck?
How does that even mean? Popular. Can you imagine a racial slur that is 4 times as popular in 2019 as 1950?
Yeah, because they're only referring to Twitter usage. Maybe that's what it is. How many times it was used on Twitter? Well, it wasn't used very much in 1907 in Twitter, but
yeah, to be fair, 1907 Twitter was pretty tame.
Yeah, it was very tame on Twitter back then.
So OED, the Oxford English Dictionary's earliest evidence for jigaboos from 1909 in the song "I've Got Rings on My Fingers" by Weston. Hold on, I want to learn this. Where'd it go? OED's earliest, by Weston. It's of unknown origin, is from the earlier noun jig. See, this is one of the meanings in OED's entry for the noun jigaboo. See meaning and use. Considered offensive. It's undergoing a continuous program of revision to modernize and improve definitions. This entry has not yet been fully revised, Joe. The Oxford English Dictionary has not yet fully revised jigaboo to be properly on their way. What is this?
I don't know.
What? How is fewer than 0.01 occurrences per million words in modern written English? Well, that's because the racists are illiterate, I guess.
Well, anyway, you've pretty much blown out my night for my
No, wait, okay. No, seriously, I didn't mean to do that. I was laughing at what happened.
No. I meant like I've wasted so much time here. Not wasted, but I'm saying I've invested so. When I had a night, I have like 2 nights to like put together this reply, and one of them is gone now.
Okay,
so,
do this first though. I sent you a private chat, but you didn't read it because you're a jigaboo or whatever. Can you pull this your GiveSend up so that you can talk about it? I have to go to the bathroom.
And well, you just pulled it up, didn't you?
I have it pulled up, but you can't control it. Do you want me to? Like, I didn't know if you wanted to scroll through it. I mean,
I'll just share with you all, your audience here, that I am, and those of you who joined late, I am suing Judge Merchan, the judge who gagged Trump. And my reason for suing him is to try and get the gag overturned as being unconstitutional, and by issuing an unconstitutional order that results in violating my rights as a media to hear from him and report that to the public at large. And I believe that a gag order that was issued is unconstitutional. You can go. I'll talk if you need to.
Yeah,
go
what I was going to say is I'm
snake.
sharing the link on Rumble, on YouTube. We're still on all platforms: Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. I'm going to go to the bathroom while you talk about this. I'll be right back. People should check it out. But here it is. And follow the link. Joe, I love you. I'll be right. Don't leave before I get back.
I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving.
Real quick.
I'm not leaving. Anyhow,
look, and
so
I changed it from my the chick from Cenk Uygur show, the Young Turks or whatever. Her is
Amicus,
Muhammad.
right?
I changed it to me as a fat guy instead.
Nice.
Just
I
for
doubt it.
I'll be right back.
I doubt it. So, yes. Anyhow, I am going to court I'm pending in court right now. I have oral arguments before the First Department, which is the first level of appellate court in New York, on Monday at 10 a.m. I'm in the middle of drafting my reply papers, which I do before I walk into court. And my theory as to the theories I'm presenting are that the judge misanalyzed the law and then misapplied the law, and that this is facially unduly prejudicial to his 14th Amendment rights for due process. Because here you have these outsider witnesses who are bashing him day after day, and it's illegal for him to respond to them. Those are the three primary arguments I present. The papers that were submitted in opposition do very little to refute the legal theories that I put out there. There's 37 pages, and the first 33 pages, they don't talk at all about my legal arguments. It's only in the last 2 or 3 pages they even try refuting my legal arguments, and they do a pretty paltry job at that. Notwithstanding that, I am realistic enough to know that when I'm arguing the First Department is the appellate division that covers New York City, meaning Manhattan specifically, and the Bronx. The justices who are sitting there, who are very learned individuals, most people do not expect them to be very receptive to my legal arguments, and that they will probably reject it out of hand. I've already retained counsel to try and assist me on this matter. This counsel I retained is representing my company, because I'm suing as Good Logic LLC, and under myself personally, Joseph Neerman. And so he's representing Good Logic LLC, and I'm still coming in pro se. This way we can both argue. He can argue for Good Logic, and I can argue under my own personal interest. And we're both expecting I'm probably going to lose on Monday. I'm going to make it as strong a fight as possible. It's going to be televised. I plan on streaming it. It's going to be Monday morning at 10 a.m. And at that time, I'll have someone else streaming it for me, and you'll be able to watch me argue my case here in front of the First Department. We do not expect that I'm going to win. It does not seem likely that I will win, given the political climate here and other factors which make it seem unlikely that I will score a victory at this level. Assuming we do not win, we plan on appealing at the Court of Appeals. That's the highest court in the state of New York. If we don't succeed in the Court of Appeals, we plan on going to the Supreme Court. My attorney, who is someone who's very experienced in fighting against COVID restrictions and other based constitutional interests, is very confident that the Supreme Court will grant us cert and that this will actually get before the Supreme Court. And he's very optimistic that we ultimately will prevail here. This is a fight for our First Amendment rights, as I keep saying over and over again. This is not about Donald Trump. While I have Donald Trump up there, and yeah, he would be the first beneficiary if we are successful here, this is ultimately a fight for our First Amendment rights. Because when they've expanded the usage of gag orders in the way that they have as applied to Donald Trump, that is a law that's on the books forever. Whether you love or hate Donald Trump, in 10 years, reality says he's not going to be part of our political landscape anymore. He's going to be ancient history. But these laws will be here in 10 years. They'll be here in 20 years, in 50 years. Your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will be dealing with this damage to our First Amendment rights, which New York and D.C. and these various judges are willing to twist and bend our constitutional protections and say, oh, we can issue a gag order here, and if they're doing it here, they're going to do it again and again and again and again. And that's why I'm in this fight. This is not about me. It's not about Good Logic. It's not about Donald Trump. This is a matter that I happen to be well positioned to engage in this fight. And that's why I'm fighting. Because I want my children to live in a country where our First Amendment rights still mean the same damn thing that it meant when I was growing up, which is something that is held inviolate. Accordingly, if you wish to support my cause here, we're expecting that the out-of-pocket costs, forget about attorney's fees, out-of-pocket costs for just applying for certiorari before the Supreme Court will be roughly $22,000 to $25,000. You have to pay $15,000 to an attorney who's a specialist in drafting cert, which neither I nor my attorney are. You need a specialized person who drafts these papers, and the expected cost of his work is going to be $15,000. The printing fees are $7,500. So these are our initial costs without any travel or any other things, just to get these papers in suitable form with a likely chance of success of cert being granted by the Supreme Court. And I recognize that we're working on an expedited timetable. Obviously, we want to get this gag lifted as soon as possible. So I brought this application before the appellate court on an expedited basis. And that's why, even though I filed these papers a couple of weeks ago, we should be reaching resolution on Monday. And then I plan on moving on an expedited basis before the Court of Appeals. And that could take a couple of weeks also. And then in theory, I can be running to the Supreme Court. I need to have the money there to pay someone to actually prepare these papers in the eventuality that we all think is most likely to happen, which is that the state of New York is not going to grant this application, and that we are going to need to seek relief before the Supreme Court of the United States. Accordingly, I set up a Give, Send, Go. It's very easy to remember because it's givesendgo.com/ungag Trump. I was very happy to see that that was available. It's
Ungag me, Joe.
givesendgo.com/ungag Trump. I'm going to be completely transparent with you and tell you this. I had to set initial money up, and I set up $25,000. I know, look, as this gains more recognition, especially, oh my God, if this thing is actually granted cert, and that would start getting national attention in this case. In that case, I can imagine that the campaign funds we would raise would probably be great, far, far, far greater than are actually needed to cover out-of-pocket costs. I will tell you all this. The deal I made with my attorneys here is, assuming that we were to raise as much as $100,000, I personally would get none of that. I wouldn't get a penny of that until it exceeds $110,000 under the contractual agreement I made with my attorneys here. Because I don't want anyone to think that I'm doing this I'm doing this as some sort of grift to try and get MAGA to feed me money to help Trump. This is not about freaking Donald Trump. While I certainly pray that he wins the next election, this is not about him. Frankly, I actually think that his presidential odds are actually best if they were to convict him or throw him in prison. So yeah, and this gag order, it makes him a far more sympathetic figure. This is not about Donald Trump. This is a matter that if we allow the courts to actually recognize the fair administration of justice as being a legitimate basis to trample our First Amendment rights, you will have no rights at all. Because what they're really saying here, if you read their freaking papers, what they're really saying is it's not anything specific that Donald Trump is saying. It's that MAGA is uniquely dangerous. That is what this whole thing is about. It's a matter, MAGA is uncontrollable, and that he has the complete control over MAGA, and they are such a dangerous entity that we cannot allow him to communicate with MAGA about anything related to this trial. Otherwise, this trial will be upended, and people all of a sudden, there'll be chaos in the streets of New York. That's essentially what they're saying. That MAGA, they didn't try daring to try and muzzle MLK when he's the head of the black community. They didn't go after Malcolm X, which frankly would have been equally stupid. Because even though they could have said, oh, he's a threat to fair administration of justice. If we're going to let him speak, in that case, black community is going to rise up here and there's going to be all sorts of craziness. No. That was not a threat. That was not enough of a threat, nor should it have been at all. And if they had actually issued such a decision at that time, back in the 60s or in the 50s when MLK was being prosecuted, I'll tell you right now, we today would look back at that decision as so unjust, it would be comparable to the Korematsu decision because it's such a terribly stupid decision. And I'll tell you right now, 50 years from now, we will look back at this decision, if it's allowed to stand up, as being moronic and crazy and leading to utter chaos here. And that's why I'm fighting my tail off here. And I want to make as evident as possible that this is not about me making money. This is not about me or my rights or whatever. I just happen to be the person who, even though I don't feel like I'm fully capable of doing this on my own because I'm a freaking commercial litigator. I'm not a civil rights attorney. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. But I am a recognized member of the media because of this stupid badge that they made me get. And I happen to be an attorney. And I happen to have enough belief in our Constitution Constitution that I say, you know what? I am going to go in there and fight with my stupid little slingshot like a crazy lunatic and put my neck in a noose here in front of the office court administration coming in there, sneering their noses at me, looking at me like I'm some crazy crackpot who's standing here coming and think that I'm some crazy Trumpist, not recognize the fact that this is not about Donald Trump. This is about our First Amendment rights, and I'm not going to let you just go willy-nilly off into the night and start changing all the rules here and start saying fair administration of justice, therefore we gag whoever we want because MAGA is so dangerous, because this is not about Donald Trump. This is about you. This is about me. This is about the next time any one of us who has any kind of microphone, I'll tell you right now, God forbid, if anyone you know, who you watch, who supports political activity or political perspectives that you agree with, I'll tell you right now, God forbid, any one of them ends up being prosecuted for something, they will say fair administration of justice and that this person has too many fans. He's got 20,000 fans who like him, and God knows what happens. If he tweets out, he's got to be silenced. Yeah, they need to be silenced. That's what's going to happen over and over again. Oh, this guy has a Twitter account which has 400 followers. We don't know what they're going to do if we allow him to speak. We have to gag him too. Every one of us is going to be ripe for a gag in the fair administration of justice, which means nothing. It's a made-up term. So that's why we have to stand up against this. And if I have to march all the way to the Supreme Court and pound on those doors and beg them to let me in there so I can pound on those doors and scream in the faces of those justices that, God, no, this cannot happen, I am going to do that. And that's why I say, look, I just want to have enough financial support that I actually can afford to get in there. So if whatever you can do to spare, to chip in on that, or you know what, even if you don't have any money, just a friendly message of saying, you know what, Joe, I appreciate that. I appreciate the efforts here. That would be meaningful too. So it's givesendgo.com/ungag Trump.
Look, guys, take the gag out of Trump's mouth and put it in mine. I'll actually like it. I'll pound on the doors of the judiciary as long as they gag me, choke me a little bit, and call me something derogatory. Joe's out here fighting. He's actually like, look, all jokes aside, us law tubers or whatever, we're passionate. We talk about subjects. We have some level of education, experience, or expertise, or some combination of all of those. We bring those to you people because all we want to do is never work a day in our lives again. But occasionally someone says, you know what, this actually matters, and stands up. Joe has no reason to do this. Joe has a lot to lose here, because when you are a person who is involved in law tube or some legal thing, and you say, I'm a lawyer, I do this thing, the world doesn't get how the legal world works. And so you put your reputation on the line, you put your idea on the line, you put your concept on the line, you win, you lose, whatever it is. If you lose, people act like you're the worst person ever. You failed, you fucked up, you didn't have a case in the first place, because they don't understand how the legal system works. The legal system is adversarial. There is no sure deal. Even with the most sure of deals, you've still got a chance to lose because of the human element, because of anything. Judges having a bad day, they're on their free bleed period or whatever. You've no, like Judge Meacham or whatever, that guy free bleeds all the time. You've no idea what they're going to do, why they might make a particular ruling against you, why they might hold you back, why they might not allow a piece of evidence in, and that might be crucial to your case. So you put everything on the line, and most lawyers go out, they never have to put everything on the line. They operate in this private manner. They represent private clients. You can't look up a win-loss record. All you can do is try and get a best guess by word of mouth. When you're public and you're a lawyer and you put everything on the line, you go for it like Joe's doing, you're asking people to have faith in you and to recognize that this is a shot. This is a chance to do something right under the Constitution. There's a chance to protect the rights of someone, even if that someone is Orange Man Bad Super Cheeto with toupee. Like, you have to realize that all of Trump's cases, even if they have a valid complaint, all of them are not based on the validity of justice. They're all based on the concept of political persecution, of obstructing a political campaign that terrifies them, of ruining the name of a man who threatens them. And this is not unique to Donald Trump. The government does this all the time. It's just most of them are not so powerful, not so prominent. They don't have a Q score of 100%. Not everybody in the world knows who they are, and the government's able to take them down. Trump is a guy. Like him, love him, hate, love him, whatever it is. This is a guy who deserves all of the same constitutional protections that you and I have. But more importantly, what Joe is representing here is not Trump's constitutional protections. And that must be reiterated, is the constitutional protection of you and I as citizen journalists, as someone who has something to learn and something to share with someone else, and an opportunity to do so, to walk into a government building and say, hey, I have a goddamn right to do this. I have a right to be here, to record this, to share this with the world, to let them know what is going in the American legal system behind closed doors, because my right as the press to report on what you're doing will protect everyone's right to their lawyer, to adequate representation, to cross-examine their witnesses, to due process, to substantive due process, to freedom from government corruption through search and seizure, and invalid process, to invalid prosecution, to protect us from the very system that we are in, to protect us from ourselves and our power that we lent to someone else who might use it to abuse us. Joe is out here protecting our rights to listen, our rights to talk, and he is protecting every citizen's right, because if Donald Trump, one of the most powerful and prominent men in America, and indeed the entire world, with all of the resources he has, can be curtailed by one judge's interest in his political speech, if he can be curtailed in how he is allowed to talk about himself in his own defense publicly, then what chance does anybody on earth have?
Zero.
To have a fair shot at saying, I didn't do this? The U.S. government, the New York government, Alvin Bragg, a politically motivated DA, none of them can pin this on me, because I had every right to do what I did, and everything they're saying that I didn't do is wrong. And here's why, is because they're political animals that stand to only profit in a way that would be disgusting in the private sector. It'd be even worse in a church or a school or anywhere else. It's political exploitation at the highest level. Alvin Bragg is masturbating nightly to the possibility that he gets a conviction of Donald Trump, because he becomes the next attorney general, the next Supreme Court justice, dare I say the next president of the United States, if he wins. And it's gross how much power that gives him and how much motivation it is. If we don't recognize that, we don't recognize the need of the citizens to be protected in their rights, then we recognize nothing at all about the Constitution. Joe's the one guy out here of all of us retards streaming online. Joe says, hey, I'm going to actually do it. I'm going to do this thing that's more important than a stream, than a rant, than a tweet, than anything else that brings him money. He's going to put himself, his reputation, his dollars on the line and say, this matters. So guys, give, send, go, /ungag Trump. Forget me, forget everything you know, and think about me. Think about the importance of what this means to everybody out there, because I'm not doing it. Barnes isn't doing it. Viva isn't doing it. Runkle, Sean, Legal Mindset, Legal Vices. I love all these people. They're all great. None of us are doing it. Joe's here doing it. He's going to the judge in his own jurisdiction and saying, hey, knock this shit off. Here it is. Givesandgo.com /ungag Trump. Fight for the First Amendment. Fight for your rights. Let Joe represent us. He's a good dude, smart dude. He's a firebrand. But at the end, damn it, at the end of the day, you know what you're getting with Joe. What you're getting is a good man of good character who's honest, and agree with him or disagree with him. You know where he stands. He respects where you stand. Joe, my man, how you doing, buddy?
All right. I'll see you all. You can watch me on Monday if you want. I will be streaming at a Good Logic. So someone's going to be streaming it for me. But
you're on YouTube and Rumble, right?
I'm on YouTube and Rumble. Yes.
Guys, Good Logic, YouTube and Rumble.
I'm at 96,000. Somehow, even with doing this, YouTube manages to suppress me from crossing 100.
How have you not made it to 100,000 yet?
I don't know.
I'm about to create 4,000 bot accounts just to subscribe to you.
You're awesome, my brother. It was great hanging out with you tonight, my friend.
Thanks, dude. We got to talk more. We have to have a show that, you know, like not on a specific topic, but some good stuff.
You got it.
Let me know. Talk to me. I've been reclusive. It's all me for months and months and months, and I'm getting out of that shell. So hit me up. I'd love to come on your show.
Will do, my brother. Thank you so much, my friend.
Good luck, my friend. Let me know if I can do anything else to help.
All right. Have a good night.
Peace.
Peace. Godspeed.
Oh my goodness, I love that guy. I love that guy. And look, the other day someone's like, hey, Joe's looking for your help. I'm like, I can't help anybody. I can't help myself. I can't help anybody out there. I'm just a weirdo who has a YouTube channel and I talk into the void, and it's great. It's wonderful for me. But what can I do? So what I found out Joe wanted to come on tonight. Guys, I've still got this pulled up because it still matters more than most things I talk about. I'm a huge proponent of the First Amendment. I don't have the opportunity to fight for this shit. Joe's there. He's got the lawsuit. He's writing it. He's putting passion into it. He's not listening to the people who are like, I don't know. Because sometimes you can hear everybody say, I don't know. You can hear everybody say, you can't win, you can't do it, you can't do it. And you go, well, if none of you believe it, I guess I have to figure it out myself. And you go for it. Like the guy who got the 27th Amendment passed. 27th Amendment, I think it was 27th, maybe it's 28th. It's the one where Congress cannot increase their own salary. Like they can, but they can't accept the increased salary until they get a new term, like until they get reelected. So they can increase their salary, but they can't accept it until they win another election. And the reason is obvious, right? Like if you could just raise your salary to infinity dollars, Congress can, and then accept it. They're just do that and take the money. That amendment was proposed, I think, along with the Bill of Rights or very shortly after, but it missed the ratification number required by a couple states. Some guy found out that this amendment was pending. He was just a guy. He's like looking in the library. He's like, holy shit, they proposed this. They voted on it. There weren't enough states ratifying it, but they never turned it down. It doesn't have an expiration date. So I think it was 1992. This motherfucker starts going to states that haven't ratified the amendment. They're like, by the way, do you think these assholes should be able to raise their own salary? Like, well, no, that's ridiculous. He's like, did you know there's an amendment? It was actually passed. All it's waiting for is enough states to ratify it. Once we get to 2/3 of the states, it's 35, 38 states, whatever it is. Once we get to that number of states, it's in the books. It won't expire. You don't have to do anything else other than say, oh yeah, I'll do this. Cause some of these places, he's like, you weren't even a state at the time. He's like, do you think Congress should be able to raise their own salary without getting reelected? Everybody should say no to that, but they could. They could. It was the right thing to do. It was one guy who looked in an old book and found this thing that everybody else had forgotten. He decided to make it his thing. Joe is here. He's one guy. He has the know-how. He has the background. He has the education. He didn't have the experience, though. He told you he's not a First Amendment lawyer. First Amendment lawyers who talk to him, they're like, I don't know about this. I'm not sure. But some of those guys, they want the concept. They just don't see the legal avenue. The best part about someone who doesn't know the legal avenue is sometimes you get in the truck and you drive off the goddamn road and you end up at the same destination because you didn't know where you were going and you just decided to go in a straight line. So check it out. My man is givesendgo.com/ungagtrump. If you want to follow him, Good Logic, LAWGIC. If you don't know how to spell it, just spell it like a Jew would pronounce it. Like Good Logic would be American. Good Logic, like the very Northeastern Jew. Spell it like that, and you'll find his channel. He's been my friend for a long time. I know someone in the chat said, I love Joe's rants. And he did a very good rant today. He just got passionate. He got fired up about the topic. He said, no, this is about us. It's great. And he did that. And I was like, I don't know if you guys know why Joe has a channel, but he had a rant on Twitter. And his wife said, like, no one will listen to you or whatever. It's like, so look, if I can get X number of people on Twitter to follow me because of this rant, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start talking. It's like, I got to have this guy on the show. I like this guy. His rant was very cool. It was very passionate. It was very him. It was very personal. To have him on the show, he ranted. I'm not claiming credit, by the way. Joe is all Joe. I think he talked to Ron Coleman. He talked to some other people, and he created this channel. He created a Twitter account. He started just being like, no, this is the thing. This is who I am. This is where we are. This is MAGA. This is Trump. So if you want to learn about that, go follow Joe. He's a great dude. Very good friend who's always been very good to me. Again, givesandgo.com/ungagtrump. Look, if you have troubles ungagging Trump. Just say gag Ricada Law. He'll probably like it. All right, we got some super chats to read. And look, I didn't do the Rumble flip today. I was going to. Mikey P78 says he started to punk you. Okay. Oh my gosh. I better go genocide him or whatever. Got some super chats to read. I was going to do the Rumble flip today, but once I got Joe on, I wanted to stay on both channels. I wanted to stay as open as possible for people to see and join and all of that stuff. Because look, he's a good dude. His message is important, and what he's doing is important beyond just talking online. A lot of us talk online. A lot of people think it's important, but really, talking online is great. Spreading the message, getting people to engage and educate themselves is wonderful. Going in and doing the thing, it's rare that influencers or whatever do that. They go do the thing. They put their reputation online. Joe did it. He's awesome. So here we go. We've got Caesar Day says, oh my God, save Joe. He's OCDing. Free, Joey. He says, from the river to the sea, Joe needs help from Nikki. Also says, from the sea to the river, Nick is here to deliver. JC says, all hail LawTube live crossovers. God, I hate the title LawTube. Kate C, a.k.a. Snake Plush Kitten says, restrain the judge in a chastity as punishment. Don't restrain judges in chastity. Throw them in a volcano. Kate C, a.k.a. Snake Plush Kitten says, hire wrong wat Corrigan to fly illegals to New York City. David says, Gab AI is cool. Has a bunch of different characters you can talk to. Less censorship, too. What characters? Rob Ford 7777 says, let Joe tell his goddamn story already. Well, no. There's a member who sent a 10-month chat, but it was deleted by C. Goody, presumably because C. Goody's gay. I don't know what the chat was. Whatever that member was, if you want to tag me, I don't know. I'm fine with whatever chat you send. I mean, I might come to your house and make you ramen or whatever, but do it poorly. D. What says has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Lefty Lull says, Nick, you have my number. Get down to Lakeville. Let's play some golf. Yes. I know who you are. Let's I wanted to come down and play last year and I failed to do that. Let's do it this year. Let's do it before fall. Ariane, the vegetarian says, you have to watch today's hearing for the Brian Kohlberger case. Ann Taylor presented this argument you're giving beautifully. I'll have to look at it. If anybody has a link to the clip, that'd be great. But otherwise, I can try and find it. Today's hearing for Kohlberger. That's the Ohio 4 accused murderer. I didn't know that case was actually going on, but very cool. Ellie Fan says, Joe has a gifts and go. Ungag Trump. If you want to help him, stick it to the man. AV to the 7th power says, not to minorities. Look, that's what Jesus said. He's like, anywhere 2 of you are gathered, bikes are stolen or whatever. That's what he said. I was there. J-Rock says, Nick, mod me too. No, sorry. You're already gay. You don't need help. AD says, if the court justifies gagging Trump for safety, then all First Amendment rights fall. Exactly. Me 04120 says $5 if you use the word jigaboo in your arguments on Monday. I think it means to Joe, but I will go do the oral argument for Joe on Monday if I get to use jigaboo. Carrie says, I sent a 10-month chat. Don't know why he deleted it. Nothing wrong with it. Carrie, can you restate it? Look, C. Goody was probably engaged in homosexual relations with a male mammal, but not a human. So he probably fucked that up. He's probably just tapping on his phone while in ecstasy. If you just tag me, I'll read your chat. I don't know what he and it was probably, honestly, it was probably an accident. Sometimes C. Goody falls asleep, and while he's trying to press fast forward on the porn, he just touches block a whole bunch. Sees the day says, Joe, start argument. Free, Trumpy. Lol. Sees the day says, from Joe's mouth to God's ears, here are prayers. Ryan Blue Thunder says, yo, Nick, I'm going in a few weeks to the Republican National Lawyers Association National Policy Conference. Looking forward to hear where they need me before November. Why don't they invite me to this shit? I'm not invited to anything. Ramblue Thunder says, also, Shipley's are a thing, but I'm not sure I'd recommend to everyone visiting Houston. Look, Shipley's are a great staple donut in Houston. There are, of course, bad Shipley's and good Shipley's. The good Shipley's are run by Asians. The bad Shipley's are run by any other minorities, including whites. Don't go there. Good Shipley's, Asians. Preferably the darker Asians, like the Pacific ones or whatever. Like, Vietnamese. Well, they're not really Pacific. Vietnamese, not Thais. Vietnamese. Just Vietnamese. If you go in there and they're speaking something that's other than Vietnamese, like if you're not ordering pho with your donuts, don't buy them. If you go to Shipley's, there's anybody other than the Vietnamese there, you probably vest that thing because you're already, like, your life is already over because you wasted a day of donut eating. But their life should also be over. It's like, what, a Norwegian in a donut shop? No, don't do that. They don't know how to make donuts. They know how to make bullshit and communism. I know the Vietnamese know how to make communism too, at least the northern half of them, but the southern half of them are still there. Well, they're not there. They're in America and they're making donut shops. Get Vietnamese donuts. Why didn't the Republican National Lawyers Association National Policy Conference invite me as an honored speaker? I would go there and tell them, I'd extol the virtues of various sexual relations and positions that they've never heard of because they're Republican, like missionary or sex at all. Heterosexual sex, I would point that out to them. Because as Republicans, we know that they all just go to the bathroom at the airport, run their hand along the bottom of the thing, tap their foot twice, and grab the toilet paper roll and hope that some twink grabs their penis. Runkle of the Bailey. Runkle, how you doing, man? Says, Nick, I'm currently fighting the Canadian government in court, trying to get a firearms issue to the Supreme Court. Good luck. Good luck. The Canadian government just listened to what you tweeted and said, I'm trying to get firearms to the Canadian Supreme Court. So hopefully you won't get arrested after that. Wait, just sign up? I don't want to sign up. I want them to come to me. I want them to beg me to show up or whatever. If they don't, like, that's fine. I understand. But if they don't beg me to show up, I don't want to go. I don't want to turn them down if they haven't begged. I don't want to big time the Republican National Lawyers. Can you imagine, like, the Republican National Lawyers Association would be the first thing you would say to them in your TED Talk? Hey, guys, 2020, kind of fucked that one up, didn't you? That's the end of my TED Talk. Thanks for coming. I'm going to go to Wendy's. Eat what the monkeys eat says, what is in that goblet? This is from Pecos Pete's. It's a natural tea and soda company. I got this at Anime Matsuri. I'm trying to show you guys. Pecos, you can't see it. Pecos Pete's. It has sweet tea, cream, and vanilla, and ice. Well, it had ice till it melted, but it's delicious. My favorite drink right now. Ariane, the vegetarian, says, Idaho, lols, P.S. It's Aryan. That's what Hitler said too. Why would you do this? Aryan, the vegetarian. That makes more sense, but I thought it was Aryan, the vegetarian, because Aryan's offensive. Carrie says, was saying that if Johnny Depp and Amber Heard wasn't televised, and Johnny Depp could have lost due to mainstream media's bias. Oh, yeah, I saw that. No, 100%. Johnny Depp was literally saved by the public viewership of the trial. Not that it influenced the jury, not that anything else happened, other than if Johnny Depp had lost the case, he would have still won because the public would have gotten to see who he was versus Amber Heard, and the legal structure around the outcome would have mattered less than the perception. Johnny Depp looked like the less insane person in that case, which isn't hard next to Amber Heard. That's like looking like the less baby mama having guy than Shaq or whatever. How do I talk about it? I'm not going to talk about that. Can you imagine being in a wheelchair after being with Shaq? I can't. I mean, I've done it, but I can't imagine it because my brain shut it out. What's the latest with Monty? Just waiting on the ruling from the appeals court, brother. Robert Anderson says everyone can agree that when you cramp it, wait, that's the wrong one. NBC says the Trump trial should all be televised for sure. I 100% agree. They're literally the most important court cases going on in the country in maybe a century, because they're going to sculpt the future of Article 2 executive authority, what it means. Does he have immunity? What can the government do? What can an incoming regime do? What can states do to curtail ballot presence? What can happen? All of these are questions that haven't been asked since 1791 or 1868 or whatever. They haven't ever been asked. And they certainly haven't been answered. And now they will, all of them at once, just because he's like, no, I'll go in there. Oh, you said I can't go through that door. What's behind that door? Another door. Well, I'll go through both of them. Try it again. You charge me one more time, and I'll charge your mother for her rent, which I haven't done for a while because she's charming. But they go through this. They go through these things, and they're like, Trump man bad. He can't talk. That's bad. And they ignore the implications of the rights on everyone else. I read Carrie's super chat. I read it. For God's sake, read at Carrie super chats. I literally read them. What am I doing wrong? I'm like, I read that. And you're like, no, you need to read that though. Oh my God. Okay, we've got some Rumble chats here. Snuggle Struggle says medical tyranny allotted the largest wealth transfer ever. Now the last bit of wealth is being extracted to fund needless conflict. Needless conflict. I assume you mean Ukraine. This is the WEF's shareholder capitalism by indentured servitude. Free yourself from it. Make your own country. Mayu says ossifer is nut derived. Nut derived? What the fuck is nut derived? Wait, who said I was euphoric? I don't think you were saying I was euphoric, but whoever said that, I'll take it as me anyway. Damn it. Where'd you go? Thank you. Shaq Fu. Chrome Minion, you can't mention Shaq Fu. Even Shaq doesn't mention Shaq Fu. Normally, you get a promotional deal where it's like you mention a thing, you get X amount of dollars, like you're promoting it. Shaq actually loses money when he mentions Shaq Fu. The worst thing. Jessica Reloaded says, everything you do is wrong, Nick. Everything. I know. Which is why talking to you is wrong. And I will stop. Thank you. Thank you for telling me. It's been a while. It took me a while to recognize it. Hogs1PK says, remember the Trump code speaker they had in the Colorado ballot case is what they will use to justify the gag. Oh, the Trump code speaker. Yeah, the guy who decided, Trump's talking to me in code. He says murder every Colorado politician's babies. Like, they don't have babies. They like abortions. Jason of TGA says, apparently, Nick, Joe in the dictionary never saw 1980s National Geographic covers or docos. Dude, those weird, African hopping ladies with hoops on their necks and the tits that sag down to their knees and look like water bottles they look like water skins, really. Made from the leather of an old cow, but too tall. So you want to put 2 liters of Pepsi in a 3-foot long thing. That was their weird, saggy African tits. People are like, oh, I looked at National Geographic and I did too. It almost made me gay. Because I was like, oh my God, that's what breasts look like after a while. I don't want to do that. You're like, oh no, wait, there's an African tribe. That's not a woman. That's a baby producer. That's a landmine finder producer, where they produce babies and then they go out and get blown up by landmines because they're Tutsis or whatever in Rwanda. And you're like, oh God, that woman has had more kids than Hillary Clinton's had people killed. That woman had more kids than Hillary's emails. That's why her tits drag to her feet. She can walk on them so she keeps the floor dry after she's in the rain. But that's only in one season in Africa. And that season is sadness. Deus Ex Machina Prime says, Trump. Battlecrow says, good rant, Joe. Well, good job, Joe, I guess. Do you guys remember that when they're like, look at this African tribe? Well, we didn't have an accent because it was just written on the paper. Be pull up the National Geographic in 1988. You're a kid, you're like, oh, this is going to be cool. I'm going to learn about rhinos and whales or whatever and how they fight. And you open it up and you're like, black people, that's strange. Why? I know all of these. I grew up in the middle of the city. Like, why do they have hoops around their neck? Is that because they're practicing basketball with their heads? Oh, no, that's just how they stretch their necks out because that's a cultural tradition. Oh, my God. Did they hoop their breasts and drag them all the way to the floor? Or was that just gravity being meaner in Africa than everywhere else? Is that why they're so strong and can jump so high when they get off that continent? I don't know. But I learned from National Geographic that African tribal women don't look like the women I've ever seen in my life. And thank Christ for that. Carrie says, Nick, what's wrong with you? Why do you hate me, i.e. Twitter? Wait, why do I hate you on Twitter? What did I do on Twitter? Patroller says, this show is freaking great. Just donate to Joe's Gifts and go. Have a freaking Nagla and Mazel Tov, Joe. Wait, what is that? Holy shit. We raised like $1,000 for Joe's campaign here for his thing. We're up to almost 8,600. Guys, again, give, send, go /ungag Trump. Joe's doing something important. If you want to throw some donations, that'd be great. Don't give money to me. Don't give money to like the streamers who are talking. We love it. Like, look, I love when you guys give me money. It makes me feel good about myself. I touch myself at night because of it. It helps the show go on, all that stuff. I don't like to talk about it or ask for it or anything. I'm going to do the show. People want to give money, they can. If they don't, I'm still going to do the show. I'm too vain to not. Joe's out here doing something really, really important. This is the thing I want you to give money to. These are the things that I want people to support. I want people to support good people doing good things. Whether it's got a good chance, a bad chance, or medium chance, at least it's a fucking chance. At least it is someone picking up a sword and fighting for the rights that we have. Joe does it. I love that guy. I trust that guy. I'd hang out with him all the time. I'd hire someone to carry a shield and die for him or whatever. I don't want to die for him because like if I die, he's like, I don't get to hang out with him. But I hire someone useless to die for him if I had to. But let's check him out, support him in what he's doing. He's really good dude, and he's doing something important. Ryan Blue Thunder says, Nick, you're gonna get out on the roundup biz? What the fuck is a roundup biz? If it involves lawyering, I have no idea what it is, and I'm probably not going to do it. If it involves something shadier than that, yes. Carrie, you got to tell me why I hate you. New debate says, beware the lead leaching from the leaded crystal glass. But you think I'm drinking from leaded crystal? This is cheap glass. This isn't leaded crystal. And this is this is aluminum or steel or something. This isn't lead. If I was going to drink lead, I'd just do it. It'd be easier. I'd put it in a Colt. It'd go faster. Let's see. What else do we have? Buster Rhymes says, Sears catalog ads on Sunday paper. Greater than Nat Geo. Dude, they used to send me the fucking Victoria's Secret ads. And I'm like, I mean, I buy this, but you guys aren't supposed to know my alternative identity. Those were great. And it was in like the prime Victoria's Secret days before they hired the fat ones and the trans ones. Gross. Carrie says, check my handle, Carrie Merritt 81. Okay, we're going to do this. Carrie _Merritt 81. Ben Frail says, did you get thrown off Rumble? I'm literally on Rumble right now. Okay, people. Wait, did I spell that wrong? Carrie, KERI _MERRITT 81. It says there's no people. Do I have to put an @ sign there? Oh, there it is. I found it. I hate the Twitter search thing. It's garbage. What do you mean? Why do I hate? Because I'm not following you? Is it just because I'm not following you currently? Okay, done. There you go. I'm following you like I follow Taylor Swift in an alley. If there's something else, just message me or whatever, because I'm not understanding it. That's what I'm bad at. Okay, we've got a couple on locals here. Art the Clown says, free Palestine from the river to the sea. Oh, hi, Joe. Art, why didn't you tell me to read that sooner? Damn it. Let's see. We don't want to hear about you furiously masturbating. Well, you won't have to hear about me happily doing it. I won't tell you about the furious ones. Try drinking out of Fiesta ware. It's glow in the dark grouse. Adriana says skinny fat. Heather Reed says Ricada's everywhere. Oh God, please. Yes. I'm on YouTube as well. Yes. YouTube and Rumble tonight. I didn't do the Rumble flip, but we just stayed on all the on YouTube and Rumble. Oh my God. No, not because you're not following me. It's because I can't message you because you stopped me from doing so. I didn't stop you from doing so. I have the check mark. Therefore, I couldn't message or you couldn't message me at the oh God. Here. I sent you a message. Now you can message me. There you go. It's because if you have a blue check mark or whatever that you pay for, they'll never recognize me as someone important because I'm not. But if you pay for the blue check mark, then people can't message you unless like you have to select it or whatever, unless they have one, unless you follow them. So it's done. Where's your locals gifts, bitch? I don't know. It was stolen by Budbusters. So there you go. Oh shit. Johnny Duck 311 says go hit like on Joe's Good Logic channel on Rumble and ampersand YouTube. Help boost him. I went on YouTube and you cannot find his channel unless you search it. So fucked up. And Gifts and Go. Yep, absolutely. Again, go support guys like Good Logic who do great things, who do good work, who are great streamers, great people. You know you don't have to agree with their politics. You can tell they're authentic and genuine. But really, when they're fighting for your rights, that's when you should support them. If you don't otherwise do it. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this show up. Thanks for joining me. Sorry for the late start and all that shit. Trying to get, again, back to consistency at 11 p.m. until I can change the schedule so I can get inconsistent. No, till we can be consistently somewhere else. That's fine. But the show tonight got a little bit delayed from some stuff. I explained it on Locals. It just held me back from getting home in time. Nothing was wrong. So the man, the myth, the legend, Good Logic, America's free speech warrior, with attorney Ron Baruti, together they will save free speech in America. It's a picture by, well, Johnny Reb 84 sent it. Thank you for the tip over on Locals. All right, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow, Friday night for sure. I do intend to get some local streams in very soon. If you're on Locals, just watch for the notification, baby. RicadaLaw.locals.com. If you're not on Locals, May, I said, is the start of more impromptu local streams, which you can only find if you follow for free on Locals. And there will be at least 14 of them a month starting this month. So come check them out. They will not be at consistent times because Locals isn't for consistency. Locals is for inconsistency and also nipple pictures, which I'll be doing soon. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hope you guys have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. If we don't see you tomorrow, it's because you're bigoted. And finally, on Rumble, on YouTube, click like. Please click that thumbs up. Put that thumbs up where it belongs, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good night, guys. Peace. Peace.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some law-splaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his This lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an art bag, a bow, more of that rug. The spirits blow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea, post on Twitter, as we hear lost planning tonight. From the white shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the wrong better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we are now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea, post on Twitter as we hear lost painting tonight. From the white shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the wrong better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who